Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Hunter. Mind capacity starting from Devil Fruit. Chapter 81. The words fell. The restaurant returned to calm. No one knows what Cass and others here think. Huang Quan, who had been in the corner as an observer, made an unexpected discovery while secretly observing and peeping. The cloaked man who was sitting on the right side of him just now, while Letnosla was talking, suddenly felt an abnormal fluctuation of thought energy around him. Although the other party quickly restrained himself, Huang Quan, who always pays keen attention to details, still noticed that moment. What did Wright say just now? Wright's few words from before came to mind. Huang Quan thought about the unusual comparison time with the cloaked man for a moment, and finally settled on the collection. Repeated memories. After confirming that it was correct, Huang Quan's expression revealed a hint of amusement. Obviously, the man in the cloak, who was almost excluded by him before, is so abnormal when it comes to collectibles, and he is obviously inseparable from 010 Flip. Just now, he focused on observing Cass, Batulu and others. However, although their expressions were a little strange, their reactions were not as intense as the cloaked man's. Is it because the other party is already interested in collectibles? Or is it that his level is above Cass and others? My true self. Or is there something wrong with Nen because the collection was stolen? Various details along the way emerged in Huang Quan's mind, and a series of conjectures were born in response to thoughts. His eyes kept flashing with strange lights. This is the advantage of the enemy being in the open and the enemy in the dark. You can collect all kinds of intelligence on the enemy quietly. At present, there are 3 people who can be identified by him as the clones controlled by Flip, namely Cass, Batulu and the cloaked man. Among them, the cloaked man is listed as the highest alert target by him. Even if the other person is not the real person, judging from the other person's behavior towards the collection, judging from the interest, the level of manipulation must be very high. And the remaining 3, Huang Quan glanced at it. The relatively familiar elder guard Nen has the most ordinary appearance. He is the kind of person who grabs a lot of people in the crowd. He was silent all the way. He only showed his face when he heard Letnosla talk about freedom. Showed interest. The black man in the vest still has an arrogant attitude that he can do as he pleases. Even though Wright has restrained himself a little, he still shakes his legs as if he is impatient. The last man with a reversed forehead. Huang Quan didn't know how to evaluate the other party. The man with his slender head, who seemed a little restrained after entering the restaurant, was staring at Wright with admiration, as if the other person's gangster demeanor was completely in line with his imagination of gangsters. Regarding this point, Huang Quan can only say that the people who come out of Meteor Street are full of personality, and most of them are weird and perverted with unique brain circuits. These 3 people are temporarily listed as candidates by Huang Quan. It cannot be ruled out for the time being whether they are also controlled by Fripp. Perhaps what they are doing at this moment is the disguise of Daily Rune core characters. Since we can't be sure, let's just observe it for a while. His fingertips slid across the surface of the silver table knife, and a cold look flashed in Huang Quan's eyes. If he still can't tell in the end, then he will not reject the idea of solving all 6 people, otherwise once Fripp's clone escapes, there will be endless pursuers in the future. Hopefully Krollo won't disappoint. Right now. Ta-ta-ta. Accompanied by the sound of slight footsteps, maids pushed the dining cart and walked quickly, placing exquisite and gorgeous dishes on the dining table in front of everyone. Enjoy it. The food on this spaceship is prepared by star chefs specially hired from gourmet hotels. At the head of the table, Wright, who devoted his whole heart to his daughter, greeted the food as soon as it was served and signaled everyone to start as they pleased. See this. The pretty maid standing next to Huang Quan gently lifted the silver food cover on the dining table in front of him with a sweet smile. Phew. The moment the food cover was opened, a strange aroma rushed towards him. Just a slight smell made Huang Quan's saliva secretion continue to accelerate. Huh. Huang Quan looked in surprise. On the porcelain dinner plate with exquisite patterns, there are pieces of marble-like sashimi, with that smooth texture and the strange fragrance that naturally comes out. Here's the appetizer. Thin slices of marbled tuna. Next to him, the maid bent slightly and whispered in Huang Quan's ear. Gudong. He swallowed subconsciously, but what made Huang Quan, who had always been calm, do this was not the delicate and fragrant maid next to him, but the delicacy in front of him called marble tuna. Why does it sound so much like the ingredients in The Prisoner of Gourmet? After looking at the others who were already devouring their food, Huang Quan picked up the fork on the dinner plate and used the knife to steadily put a piece of marble-like sashimi into his mouth. TJ. Aha! Just taking a bite, the indescribable umami taste burst out in Huang Quan's taste buds, and a scene of countless jumping tuna appeared in his mind. Chew, chew, thick and chewy texture, the sweetness that returns after the umami. Saliva seems to be secreted uncontrollably. The stomach that tastes such delicious food for the first time is constantly secreting gastric acid, trying to get more delicious food in this way. Hiss. Huang Quan, who is somewhat addicted, speeds up his eating movements. Of course, his behavior will not be as voracious as others, but he still maintains a bit of elegance. But what you think is what you think. As Huang Quan continued to eat and his mind was filled with tuna sashimi, his mind energy was suddenly slightly depleted, and instead, the demonic lines that had been silent in his mind began to twist and change. Immediately afterwards, the corresponding texture information emerged. Marble tuna. Capture level. Sea level. Note: this tuna grows in special sea areas where specific marbles are abundant. Each tuna will use the marble of specific preferences, resulting in a unique meat texture and rich in minerals. When eaten, it can make people continue to have appetite. Even the ingredients can reveal information. Noticing the information that came to his mind, Huang Quan was slightly speechless. This scene was a bit beyond his expectation. He originally thought that the devil pattern would only be effective when identifying antiquities and treasures at level, but he did not expect that corresponding information would also appear for delicious ingredients. It seems that there is still the possibility of digging deeper. Seeing this, Huang Quan put down his fork thoughtfully, because the marble tuna had been completely wiped out in a short period of time. However, the maid waiting nearby had already prepared the next dish and exchanged it with the tuna plate. This is the second soup. The sap soup of the Chinese medicine tree. Chinese medicine tree. Upon hearing the name of the dish, Huang Quan looked at it with interest. The food cover was gently taken away, and suddenly a strong smell of Chinese medicine slowly spread in the restaurant. But what surprised everyone was that there was a unique fragrance in the smell of Chinese medicine, which not only did not disgust people, but also further stimulated the original appetite. The feeling of hunger suddenly arises. It does have the taste of Chinese medicine. Smelling the aroma, Huang Quan's eyes fell on the emerald green soup in front of him, and he picked up the spoon next to him and gently scooped it up. A feeling of weight came from the spoon. Then, put it in your mouth. In an instant, it seems that the mellowness of ginseng, the blood tonifying of velvet antler, the chi tonifying of angelica, etc. are mixed with the harmonious combination of top-quality matsutake, making people feel refreshed just by taking a sip. Great tonic soup. This was the only thought that flashed through Huang Quan's mind. It tastes sweet and delicious. Not only does it have no bitter taste, but after drinking it, the dry mouth and tongue symptoms that people don't even notice will disappear in the warm soup. Chinese medicine tree. Capture level. D level. Note: this tree only grows in places where a lot of medicines are planted. Over time, the tree roots absorb a large amount of medicines and the sap produced by drinking it for a long time will have the effect of strengthening the body, strengthening essence and increasing qi. Huang Quan, who was drinking soup, saw the message and felt that the life energy just consumed in his body was unknowingly replenished during the process of drinking soup, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Although the capture level of Chinese medicine tree is lower than the level of marble tuna, only is enough to replenish a certain amount of human life energy, which is enough to impress him. However, this is not a good time to ask questions at this stage. Looking up at right in the distance, Huang Quan frowned and wrote down the Chinese medicine tree before concentrating on enjoying the sap soup in front of him. Not long after, the palm-sized soup was finished. The next dish arrived as expected. Fresh fish, teppanyaki turtle, please enjoy. Then, a red-hot porcelain bowl that was constantly boiling and steaming appeared in front of him. Inside the snow-white porcelain bowl, there is a small fiery red turtle-shaped creature, crawling in complete form in the thick juice like thick pepper, but its turtle body has long lost the breath of life. Is this a World of Warcraft? Or a rare beast? Staring at the tempting food in front of him, Huang Quan hesitated for a while, and finally picked up his fork and touched it gently. Unexpectedly, the moment he touched it, the fork tip easily penetrated into the seemingly hard flaming red turtle shell without any effort on his part. Slightly surprised, Huang Quan used a little force and directly inserted the fork with the shell and meat. As for the turtle shape, it still maintained its original shape, only the part where it was inserted was missing. Really awesome knife skills. Is that chef a full-time gourmet hunter? After putting the food into his mouth, Huang Quan, who was about to admire it, suddenly closed his mouth tightly and opened his pupils wide, because the taste buds coming from his tongue were filled with a fiery explosion feeling. It is as if there is a ball of ethereal flames exploding wantonly in the mouth at this moment. The unique feeling that has never been experienced before is the ultimate taste that is completely different from that of chili peppers. Chew. With every chew, the fiery explosive feeling will be superimposed. Until Huang Quan swallowed it into his throat, a superimposed layer of fiery turtle meat and stomach was like a volcano erupting, forcing the cold air from the user's body directly out of the body, and the whole body was filled with unprecedented warmth. At this moment, everyone at the table, including Letnian, had a lazy and comfortable look. Incredible food. With a heartfelt admiration in his heart, Huang Quan continued to eat the teppanyaki turtle meat and checked the calendar for information about the appearance of demonic patterns. Teppanyaki turtle. Capture grade C+. Note: flame turtles can only survive in volcanic eruptions. They live and grow on naturally formed volcanic iron plates and eat magma to survive. The larger the body, the more delicious the meat. Note: Conjurer expansion degree increases by 0.01, increases by 0.02, increases by 0.01. Ignoring other information and focusing on the bottom of the information, Huang Quan's eyes flashed with surprise and he ate faster. Wait until he has finished eating all the teppanyaki turtles. I suddenly discovered that the Conjurer expansion, which had been improved for a long time since the last absorption development, actually increased by 1% in this short period of time, reaching 13%. If you take the Hunter License exam, in addition to being an antiquities hunter, you can also work as a food hunter and a fantasy beast hunter. Touching his chin, Huang Quan looked interested. Seeing this, Ni Weng, who has been very interested in Huang Quan, the youngest, handsome and special temperament since they met, her big eyes rolled around, as if she had thought of something. Huang Quan had long been accustomed to not paying attention to Ni Weng's unabashed, direct gaze, and devoted himself wholeheartedly to the next meal. In his opinion, although Niang and Shizuku are about the same age, they are completely different types. Awakening Nen at such a young age means that the other person will be very stubborn to a certain extent, especially if no one teaches him. Huang Quan suddenly understood why the other party would be interested in collectibles such as skulls and eyes in the future, but he still had an innocent character. Shizuku is better. She is naturally forgetful, which is just right for her age. Her personality will not become fixed and cannot be changed. Of course, this kind of personality has advantages and disadvantages. It is estimated that the development of Nen will take a lot of time. While thinking, meats, entrees, salads, desserts, drinks follow. Except for golden oil, which has a C-level beverage capture level, which has been increased by 1% to 9% enhancer expansion, other ingredients have not been particularly increased. Maybe it's because of the grade of ingredients. The only ingredients that can reach the capture level of sea level or above are teppanyaki turtle and golden oil, and other ingredients are below sea level. Of course, all of these are the rules that Huang Quan has temporarily summarized. Everything has yet to be tested, and the delicious ingredients with lower levels cannot be said to be useless, such as the sap of the Chinese medicine tree that can replenish some life energy. Too bad, dinner is over. After drinking the last sip of golden oil under the gaze of everyone, Wright nodded without saying anything, then pulled Niang, who wanted to sneak away, back to the room. Boom. The suite door gently closed. Everyone, please come with me. Butler Liamu, who was in charge of the service just now, stepped forward and stretched out his hand to lead the way to the door. Ta, as everyone stood up and walked out of the restaurant. The last door is also tightly closed. Tisk. As if unhappy, the black man in the vest bit his toothpick and clicked his tongue. In an instant, Butler Liamu glanced at him with his sharp and cold eyes. He didn't speak until the other party's expression calmed down. Dazo. At this, At the corner of the stairs not far away, a steady voice sounded, and then a tall and strong figure wearing a suit, with a strange hairstyle and a cold complexion with tattoos on his face slowly appeared. This guy should be under 30 years old now. Huang Quan glanced at it. Now that we know that this is the Nasra gang, it naturally has a certain influence on Dazone, but the other party died too quickly in the original work, and he forgot what his nen was. The rest is up to you. Seeing Dazuo-ni appear, Butler Liamu nodded to him without a smile and immediately introduced him to everyone. Dazone is the bodyguard captain of our Nasla family. Until the end of the cooperation, you will temporarily obey his arrangements. Speaking of this, Butler Liamu looked at Dazuo-ne. I hope to see them show their value, and you will be responsible for the details next. Give it to me. After receiving the answer, Butler Liamu stepped aside and stared at everyone. My name is Dazone, you can call me Captain. Walking up to the crowd, Dazuo-ni said in a deep voice, it will take a day and a night to reach Yuxin from here. In other words, we will arrive at our destination at the same time tomorrow night. During this period, your first test is to be responsible for the security of this floor. Everyone's defense area is different. All you have to do is not to allow anyone without permission to enter the floor. As the newly rising Nasla family, there are countless jealous, haters, or hostile forces. It cannot be ruled out that there are no killers arranged by hostile forces in this temporary spaceship. Once encountered, they will all be killed. Do you understand? Enemy. Bataru, who had never spoken much before, frowned and asked, do you have any intelligence information about the hostile forces and others? The black man in the vest licked his lips playfully. That is to say, you can take any action on the spaceship. For people born in Meteor Street, life has always been a worthless thing, especially for some gray area people who help the gang council deal with the corpse all the year round. They have no fear of life and even enjoy fighting and torture process. Kavzi. Cass glanced at the black man in the vest, Kavzi, and signaled the other party to control his demeanor at the moment, and then asked Dazoane, if there is no intelligence, does it mean that from the moment we are stationed, no matter who comes, can you dispose of it at will? That's right. Dazuo-ni nodded and said solemnly, except for me personally leading people in and out, no one is allowed to enter this floor. It's never allowed. Seeing the other party's repeated emphasis, Huang Quan narrowed his eyes slightly and couldn't help but think of the group of people he met after entering the spacecraft. His intuition told him that the probability of something happening to the spaceship tonight was very high. Liamu mentioned testing before, and now Tatsuoji mentioned hostile forces. The more information there is, it means they must have known some kind of intelligence in advance. From this point of view, the night vigil will become interesting. I'm a little confused, Huang Quan still hasn't figured it out yet. Why would Cass and others rather accompany the gangsters to play this kind of bodyguard game, instead of preparing their own itinerary? Logically speaking, with the power of Mountain Beast Fripp in Meteor Street, it is impossible to even provide a few identification documents and go to friends. Kei Shin's popular tools can't even handle it. Is it for disguise? Or is it a restriction on Nen? Or maybe the Council of Elders signed some special agreement with the 10 old men. It's also possible that Fripp signed something with the gang on his own. All kinds of doubts flashed through Huang Quan's mind. At this moment, after a brief introduction, Dazuo-ni made arrangements for everyone's defense areas. The spaceship floor they are on is located on the top floor, and is divided into two areas, the inner and outer areas. The inner area is naturally where Wright and others are, while the outer area is where the entrance detection was at the beginning. A detection entrance like this is also, it can be said that there are 4 stair entrances in total, and there are 3 elevator areas in addition. There are 8 areas that need to be defended on the several hundred-meter wide floor. Therefore, in addition to the internal testing area closest to the presidential suite, which is led by Dazuo-ni himself, Huang Quan and others are responsible for defending the 7 outer areas. Ta. Following the sound of footsteps, Huang Quan followed Dazuo-ne to the entrance of a staircase, and the gang security personnel who were originally there were led into the internal testing area by Wright. After a while, Huang Quan was the only one left at the stairwell at the corner, and due to the viewing angle, the area where the others were located was no longer easily visible. That's fine. Glancing at the surrounding environment, Huang Quan leaned slightly against the wall, his left hand reaching into his black windbreaker, and the Devil's Gate appeared quietly. The book did not stand out in the wide windbreaker, and he immediately tapped the air next to your ear with your right hand. In an instant, an extremely tiny air door that accommodates and amplifies sound in both directions takes shape. This is a little bit of development and application skills for air door. It is just right to use it at this moment. It can be said to be extremely concealable. Go and observe the movements of the people nearby. It's best to find out the Nen system of those guys. Okay, give it to me, suck. The three Maki people in the space sent out subtle responses one after another, reaching his ears through the tiny air door. Pity. After the air door cleared, Huang Quan opened his eyes and looked at the empty stairs unconsciously. Regarding the air door he developed, he naturally knew where its flaws were. For example, the Devil's Gate must be manifested in order to open various forms of air gates, and the current observation range is limited to only 200 meters. If he does not consume energy by walking in the space, others can only walk in this space. When walking and observing within a fixed range, the final drawback is that he cannot hear the sound unless he is operating inside. It can be said that the advantages and disadvantages are very obvious, and it is also one of the abilities he wants to improve in the next step. It's just that Huang Quan wants to develop countless Nen, which can be regarded as the ambition and greed brought to him by Devil Pattern. At this stage, in addition to the initial gate feature, he has developed manipulators, Devil's Gate, and the derived conjurer, Light and Heavy Gate. Next, his goal is to reach 9% enhancer expansion and trait expansion respectively. As long as things go smoothly with Yukishin and his party, we may be able to achieve the set goal. Huang Quan's eyes flashed with an inexplicable color, and the imagined enhancer and trait ability setting directions appeared in his mind. Time passes minute by minute in thinking. The night falls deep and the stars fill the sky. The stairs on the south side of the top floor. Phew. Suddenly, a cold air blew up. While running at an even speed, Huang Quan's thoughts suddenly stopped and his mind was focused. He looked at the empty stairs with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Just for a moment, a sense of danger suddenly arose in his heart. Where is the enemy? Looking at the front and back, Huang Quan observed with Ning but found nothing. Seeing this, his pupils narrowed, and he observed more carefully. The sense of crisis is a kind of intuition that appears instinctively in the human body. It is impossible to appear suddenly for no reason. This is a keen sense that every Nin person has after awakening thought. At this moment, there was no enemy around, but this feeling suddenly occurred. Assassin, enemy. Various speculations flashed through his mind, but Huang Quan still had a calm expression on his face. He was leaning against the wall and staring ahead as before, his body tense and ready to go. Right rear blind spot. In the shadow illuminated by the light, a strange human-shaped shadow silently became three-dimensional, and the shadow's arms were like spikes at the moment the human-shaped figure took shape. Suddenly burst out. The shadow spikes quickly stabbed Huang Quan's head temple. Snapped. Already in a state of alert, the moment Huang Quan caught the black shadow approaching swiftly and without a breath in his peripheral vision, the black and white energy increased with the white energy, and his light figure flashed past the stabbing of the shadow spikes like a paper drawing. At the same time, he stepped forward, and a light flash appeared behind the shadow. Before the assassin could react, he used his flow luck to form hard on his right hand, and then punched it out. Call out. The hard right fist, with the speed of white mental energy, turned into an afterimage and flickered, accurately hitting the opponent's spine on the back. Even if the assassin instantly condensed the mental energy behind his back to form a tangle, he would not be able to withstand it. Holding on to the power of hardness, he crashed directly into the wall in front of him. Boom! A human-shaped pit instantly appeared on the steel plate-like wall. The assassin's body was dented, and the fist marks on his spine indicated the possibility that he could not walk. However, just when Huang Quan was about to step forward to check its status and prepare for a last strike. Phew! An arrow in the distance appeared in front of his eyeballs as if jumping in space. In an instant, his pupils shrank slightly, the white thought energy increased again, his head tilted slightly, and his body floated to the right back like a feather along the arrow's airflow. Go! Are there two enemies? The body landed on a staircase. Huang Quan ignored the left cheek that was scratched by the edge of arrow, and allowed a trace of red blood to flow down, while his black and white eyes were always looking at the directions on both sides. On one side is the assassin who was bombarded just now, and disappeared mysteriously with the help of the gap just now. On the other side, at the stairs 10 meters away, a man in casual clothes holding a traditional bow and arrow was aiming at Huang Quan with his full bow. The cooperation of assassination and long range. After collecting the relevant information in his mind, Huang Quan glanced at the place where the assassin disappeared just now, but his expression did not change. In the previous brief moment of attack and defense, he had already noticed that the opponent's nen might be related to the shadow, and was nothing more than the nen between conjurer and manipulator, such as shadow space, shadow movement, shadow sneaking, etc. Before he was injured, this ability seemed troublesome and tricky to Huang Quan, but judging from the feeling just now, the opponent's spine had indeed been blasted into multiple pieces by him. Unless the opponent carries a precious healing telepathy device or telepathy beast with him, it is completely impossible to rely on Ju to recover in a short time. Think of this. You must be the manipulator, right? Looking at the CCFA middle-aged man who was always aiming at him, Huang Quan's eyes were calm, his thoughts flowed slowly around his body, and his words revealed indifference. And it's a rare nen related to space. But, how many space arrows can you shoot like just now? After saying that, Huang Quan raised his left foot and slowly stepped forward. Speaking of which, have we met at the boarding entrance? I remember there must have been 8 or 9 of you at the time. Now there are only 2 people in my direction. Does this mean that others are invading the other entrance? Can you tell me, which organization do you belong to? I'm curious which one can dispatch so many nen. The casual man Zhou Ya tightened his bowstring with both hands. His eyes revealed a dead silence, and suddenly let go of Huang Quan's left foot when it fell, and nen activated instantly. The lost hunter. The arrows shot out disappeared instantly. When the arrow reappeared, it was already in front of the 5 vital points of Huang Quan's lower body. At the same time, the disappeared assassin suddenly burst out from the shadow of Huang Quan, hugging Huang Quan's legs with half of his body seriously injured and trying to hold it firmly in place. Perfect fit. What a pity. With his legs hugged, Huang Quan's body shape did not change at all. In an instant, his right hand, which was covered in white energy with condensation, quickly and slowly grasped the arrow that suddenly appeared. At the same time, the white energy transformed into black energy. The heavy weight gathered in his right hand stopped the fast arrow caught abruptly. Before Zhou Ya in the distance showed a look of shock, Huang Quan flipped the arrow tip down with his right hand, covered it with black thought energy with Zhou, and stabbed the assassin's head directly and decisively towards the assassin who had no time to dodge. Seeing this, Zoya in the distance quickly used Manipulator's ability to control freely and disperse the bow in his hand and the arrows in Huang Quan's hand. However, Huang Quan, who had already predicted this, kept his expression unchanged. At the moment when the arrow in his right hand disappeared, the metal knife suddenly appeared under the influence of Zhou and pierced the shadow assassin's head like tofu. Then, with the help of another person, the bow and arrow reappeared. Huang Quan's white thought energy burst out from under his feet, and his body shot towards Zhou Ya. Not long after, when Huang Quan rushed in front of the opponent, Zhou Ya had just fully drawn the bowstring, and his expression changed drastically as he fired the key. At the same time, his figure suddenly retreated and he drew the bow again. However, what power can an arrow shot at such a close range have? Huang Quan, who tested the speed and rough power of arrows when his cheek was injured, had been able to catch arrows with his bare hands before, let alone such a close range. Space-type Nen is indeed amazing, but if you want to exert its powerful power, your arm strength must be one of the limitations, right? Arrows that suddenly appeared at close range flashed across the sky. Huang Quan sneered, and the white thought energy burst out again, and his figure once again accelerated with the stepping of the soul muscles, and a high-speed movement like a flash appeared in front of Zhou Ya. When Zhou Ya was about to release the arrow again, Huang Quan put the 2 fingers of his right hand together to control the qi with the flow to form a hard fingertip, and instantly stabbed the opponent's heart where the transparent armor was entwined with the qi. With hardness far exceeding the opponent's tangle offensive and defensive power, the fingertips instantly pierced the opponent's mind energy defense, leaving 2 deep blood holes in the heart. Puff! The blood from the damaged heart rushed out wantonly, causing Zoya to spit out blood uncontrollably. In panic, Zoya wanted to use thoughts to block the blood hole. The next moment, his eyeballs were directly pierced by a metal knife, and his brain was in operation. But stop. The figure in the retreat turned into a corpse and died directly to the end. So far, both of the attackers died. Glancing at the micro-probes that had been discovered all around, Huang Quan left the Devil's Gate with his unmoving left hand in the pocket of his windbreaker, and then roughly searched the two corpses, and after confirming that there were only two wallets, he shook his head and turned back to his original position. If it weren't for the prying eyes of many probes, he wouldn't want to use the enhanced system fighting method to end the battle. If Air Gate is used, he will not give the archer a chance to shoot. As for the shadow assassin, it will be easier to deal with. Just wait for a while. But ability is intelligence. Except for some simple idiots, anyone with a normal mind will try their best to hide their nen. Returning to the original position at the entrance, he opened his wallet and looked at it, confirming that there were only some large amount denies and some cards such as bank cards and ID cards. Huang Quan shook his head, took out the denim and was about to throw it away. The action of throwing the bag stalled. Huang Quan raised his eyebrows, and squeezed the archer's wallet again. It doesn't feel right. The feeling of touch. The thickness of this wallet seems a little weird. Feeling that something was wrong with the wallet, Huang Quan checked it over and over again. After removing all the bank cards and ID documents, the hardness of the surface of the wallet attracted his attention. Because the brown wallet itself is a foldable style, but the only thing that made him feel hard was the back. The hardness was not similar to the size of a wallet, but about the same as a bank card. In other words, there is a secret. Suddenly, Huang Quan pulled at the wallet with interest, and finally found a thread that had fallen off at the bottom of the wallet. Although the thread was very small, under his gentle pull, it was lifted up by the small strap like a magnet. The closed area opened wide, and the card-like things inside fell straight down. Snapped. Huang Quan reached out to catch it and looked carefully. A special card that is completely black. There is a copper-colored square box printed on the front of the card. In the middle of the square box, there are 3 hunter words, Pandora, printed on it. At the bottom of the card is a series of numbers. 03369. What do you mean? Ranking number. And the name Pandora, has it appeared in the original work before? While thinking, Huang Quan glanced at the back of the card. The mysterious copper-colored pattern had no meaning. Immediately, I searched the other wallet similarly, but found nothing. Until he came to the assassin again and searched carefully, and finally found the same Pandora card on the assassin's blood-stained collar, but the code on it was 04554. Well, the numbers are coded differently. All are copper-colored cards. Couldn't it be related to the number of Nin people? Could it also be linked to strength? Thinking of a certain possibility, Huang Quan's interest suddenly increased a lot, and he put the 2 cards away and searched online when he had time. At the same time, the sounds of fighting that could be vaguely heard from other directions were intermittent. Just when Huang Quan thought Dazuone would arrange for someone to clean up the body, he waited for a long time and no one showed up. It's just that the instructions he received were to guard and garrison a specific area and not let any enemies pass by. As for what happened in the internal testing area, it had nothing to do with him and he couldn't take the initiative to check it out. But it cannot be ruled out whether this is one of the tests. After waiting for a moment and seeing that there was no movement in the internal testing area, Huang Quan raised his eyebrows and clicked on the sound storage door in different space in his right ear. What's going on over there now? Someone has been killed. Captain Shizuku, who happened to come back to get snacks, was eating a lollipop and said slightly excitedly, "There was an ordinary-looking guy who was killed in the position we could observe just now." Oh, did someone die so soon? A corresponding silent figure appeared in Huang Quan's mind. What type of nin is he? How many people killed him? Where are they now? Well, Shizuku was a little confused when he heard it. Please slow down and ask the leader, I didn't hear clearly. I'll do it, Shizuku. Shalnark's voice sounded. The man who died was a manipulator. The weapon he embodied was a shield. It had the ability to absorb mental attacks. However, it seemed that it could only target one person at a time, and there were 2 enemies. As a result, he was assassinated by another enhancer. The person was killed. Now the two are separated. The enhancer is approaching in your direction. It seems that he wants to coordinate the killing. The other person is the transmuter and is joining Cass's battle. The number is 2 to 1. D. After thinking for a moment, Huang Quan gathered the relevant information, turned around and looked around the corner, and slowly pulled out the knife-shaped black demon with his right hand from his sleeve. White mind energy was used to cover the body. What is Cass Nen? It should have something to do with the conjurer. Shalnark pondered and analyzed. When he fought the enemy at the beginning, the enemy's mind blade would be inexplicably sliced open every time it hit his body, but he had no other weapons and equipment. I guess it is related to the conjurer characteristics such as slippery oil and unloading. Other information is unknown and is still under observation. Okay, I understand. Continue to observe others. Hearing the sound of fast-moving footsteps, Huang Quan held the tip of the slender fragment of black demon and touched the ground. At the moment when the footsteps were getting closer and closer, he used the advanced application skill Yuan that combined Tangle and Lien. It was released directly, and the powerful aura was directly enveloped in the attacking enemy the moment it ran around the corner of the stairs. The black demon, blessed by the white light air, flashed with sword light. The next moment, bang, bang, a dazed human head fell straight to the ground, followed by a strong headless body like a boxer falling to the ground. Not long after, the blood from the cross-section of the neck slowly flowed out of the car and gushed out. Even to the point of death, he didn't understand why the light of the death sword came to him in advance just after he sensed the aura of Yuan. Where did the guy who attacked him in advance go? The blank pupils of his eyes seemed to reveal his unwillingness. Turning Black Devil's left sleeve into a ring of fragments, Huang Quan waited for a moment with joy, but the result was that he was unwilling to give in. Seeing that the other party had no possibility of resentment, he walked forward with some disappointment and searched carefully. Finally, behind the belt, I found the Pandora card. The code is 04483. The numerical sequence follows the other two. Since then, Huang Quan can definitely determine that this card may really be linked to the number of Nin people. As for the strength, it is not certain for the time being, but it may have a certain relationship. But why would Pandora let someone form a group to assassinate the Nasla family? After thinking about it, the figure of Niang appeared in Huang Quan's mind. Perhaps only Niang's precognitive type Nen can be worthy of the opponent sending many Nen people to act as assassins. Other possibilities have not been thought of for the time being. Maybe it's because Letnosla has something Pandora wants in her hands. Thinking of this, Huang Quan couldn't help but smile. No matter what the reason is, this is a matter of the Nasla family. At present, he only cooperates with the temporary bodyguard task in order to complete the goal. After solving Cass and others. So what will happen to Nasla? Besides, Nasra also appeared in Yukishin in the original work, which also means that they may have their own solutions, so he doesn't need to worry about it. By the way, is there a powerful Nen beside Right? Tatsuya Ni doesn't seem to be that powerful in the original work. The relevant figures he saw flashed through his mind, and a hint of curiosity appeared in Huang Quan's eyes. There seemed to be a few desperate guys among the gang security personnel he saw during the meal. Could it be that Right relied on them? At this time, bang bang bang, accompanied by bursts of roaring sounds, the sound of fighting in the distance suddenly stopped. After hearing this, realizing that the battle on Cass's side was over, Huang Quan raised his right hand and prepared to open the sound storage door again. Ta 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 ta. The sound of violent footsteps suddenly came. It seems that the battles in other areas are also over. Hearing the sound of many footsteps, Huang Quan took a few steps back slightly, staring at the corner of the stairs with calm eyes. However, the footsteps stopped abruptly before the corner. Notice. Then a slightly thicker voice sounded. We are Nasra security personnel. We are clearing the battlefield according to the instructions and asking the area defense personnel to launch an attack. Repeat the same words 3 times in a row. Apparently, someone saw the previous instant kill scene through the micro camera. Come on. Leaning slightly against the wall, Huang Quan narrowed his eyes slightly, seemingly agreeing to relax, but in fact he was still on alert. As long as the intruder showed the tendency to attack, he would attack and kill without hesitation. Ta, ta ta. Along with the sound of slow footsteps, a bald figure wearing a black suit appeared at the corner. When he saw that Huang Quan had no intention of attacking, he breathed a sigh of relief and greeted several people behind him and went straight to the 3 corpses. It can only be said that is professional. In just a few minutes, the entire staircase area was clean. Not even a trace of blood could be found. The only trace of the battle left was the human-shaped indentation on the wall, pit. There was not much nonsense after that. After everyone looked at Huang Quan with admiration and fear, all the security personnel quickly disappeared and evacuated while holding the body bag. The atmosphere became silent again. Phew, the air storage door opens again. Huang Quan asked calmly, "Are there any casualties on the Cass side?" "The man in the suit who came with me is dead." Maki's voice rang in his ears. "Perished together with the enemy." According to the intelligence collected, both enemies are enhancer enemies, but the direction of enhancement is different. Shalnark answered. The cloak, the black man, and Badaru couldn't make a judgment because they couldn't see it from a distance, but the security personnel of Nosla just went over to clean up, and no other fighting happened, so it can be judged that nothing happened to them. Finally, Cass, who can be observed as very strong. Even if he is 1 against 2, he can end the battle in a short time. During the battle, he can use the advanced application skills Flow and Strength of Nian freely. Is there any other information? Huang Quan looked thoughtful after hearing this. Not yet, Shalnark said. Cass seemed to have had some conversation when he was fighting the enemy, and his expression seemed very familiar, but we couldn't make any analysis because we couldn't hear the sound inside. By the way, Cass got 2 black and copper cards from the corpse. His expression at that time was very ferocious. Oh, things are getting interesting. Upon hearing this information, Huang Quan had an inexplicable look in his eyes. From Shalnark's description, it is obvious that Cass. It should be said that Fripp has a certain understanding of Pandora, a mysterious force that has never been heard of, and may be very clear about the function of the card. Then again, is there something wrong with the assassin's mind now? Why do you carry a card with such obvious information with you? Doesn't this clearly tell the person who was assassinated that it was Pandora who carried out the assassination? What gives them the confidence to be so unscrupulous? Thinking of this, Huang Quan couldn't help but have a flash of doubt in his eyes. The other side, interior area, monitoring room. At this time, in the spacious monitoring room, 3 walls were covered with monitoring screens. What was displayed clearly on the screen was Huang Quan and others. It can be said that except for the sound, all the movements of the people on the floor are displayed on the screen. How about it? Butler Liamu pushed open the door gently and entered, ignoring the figures of other surveillance security personnel, and looked at Tatsuani, who was located in the middle of the room. Except for the 2 dead people, the others are all senior-level nemesis. Looking at the figures on the surveillance screen, Dazuo's face turned slightly solemn. Once a battle breaks out, even if I take action personally, I can only deal with Badaru and Kavzi. The fighting qualities embodied by Pengli, Cass and Izumi, cannot be underestimated. That's not what I asked. Liamu sighed. Knowing the other party's true character, he directly changed the subject and said, "How are they doing?" "That's what I want to know." "Very strong. Very valuable. But," Dazoane walked back and sat on the brown sofa behind him, picked up the wine glass on the table and took a sip. "If I want to recruit and buy them, I think it will be difficult to achieve with Nasra's current size, because their Nen level is much higher than the Nen people I have seen. I can only say that they are worthy of being unknown people from Meteor Street. A person without a surname. Even those assassins who seemed to me to be very strong just now didn't seem to have unleashed their full strength. If we can bring them all under his control, my ambition to join the 10 old men will probably be greatly expanded in a short period of time. At least the top gangsters under 10 old men will definitely not be a problem." Speaking of this, Inzuo's eyes fell on Huang Quan's screen figure. It's really unimaginable that at such a young age, he has such great strength and is proficient in the control of Nian. If more than 10 years later, who else would be his opponent? That's it. Liamu thought for a while, then looked up at the monitoring screen. Now that their value has been reflected, I will send the relevant information to the master for review. The specific arrangements are to be determined. You continue to lead them in guarding. By the way, which force is taking action today? From what you just said, all those who are taking action are Ninner level assassins. Quote dot dot dot. Didn't hear that. Hearing this, Dazuo's face turned solemn, and he handed the black copper card on the coffee table to Butler Liamu. Pandora. This is the only information recorded on this card. It is not clear whether it is a code name or the name of its force, but being able to send out so many powerful assassins at once is as terrifying as the Hunter Association. And there is a sorting code on the card. The power is unknown. The strength is unknown. I have arranged for people to check it. All relevant information cannot be found online. I can't figure out who would spend such a high price to assassinate a newcomer like Nasla. The gangster family. I suggest the boss find someone to understand the situation as soon as possible. If it weren't for these guys from Meteor Street tonight, the consequences would be disastrous. Seeing how solemn Dazuo was, Butler Liamu's expression also became serious. He immediately took the card without any nonsense and hurried to the office area of the presidential suite to report the relevant matters to Letnosla. When Letnosla walked into her daughter's room thoughtfully and doubtfully. Not long after, boom, the door was pushed open forcefully. With a piece of paper in his hand, Letnosla's originally slightly majestic face turned pale. He ignored Lumiu and other housekeepers and security personnel, and rushed to the study nervously and quickly as if he was about to die. It wasn't until he found a gorgeous jewelry box in study, and entered the password to open it, that Wright trembled and rummaged through the note to find the collection inside. Finally, a dark box the size of a book page was found among many treasures and antiquities. Is it because of it? Carefully opening the pitch-black box and looking at the palm-sized broken animal skin inside, Wright gritted his teeth and looked at the dazzling words prophesied on the note again, predict the demise of the family. Finally, he closed the box and pondered for a moment. He said in a deep voice to the door. Lumiu, call those people from Meteor Street over. Yes, master. Accompanied by the sound of fast footsteps, Lumiu did not dare to delay when he saw the scene just now. At the same time, Huang Quan, who was guarding in the south stair area, suddenly felt an unprecedented strong throbbing feeling. In an instant, his eyes were like a beast that had discovered its prey, staring at the internal testing area where there was a throbbing feeling. Nian device. Quite a while. Sweet living room. Everyone who was supposed to be defending in their respective areas was all brought here. Just compared to the 7 people at the beginning, there were only 5 people left from Meteor Street at this moment. I finally have an expression. Standing on the back of the sofa on the far right, Huang Quan glanced at the ugly-looking Cass and others, and the corners of his mouth curled up, but now was not the time to observe these guys. He kept observing the living room from the corner of his eyes, in all directions. The throbbing feeling of longing for it before was still fresh in his memory and unforgettable. It's a pity that it suddenly disappeared in just a few seconds. It was obviously sealed by something. This was the first time Huang Quan noticed that the things that originally caused the throbbing sensation would also be blocked by some unknown things. It was certain that the blocked thoughts must be in the presidential suite. Thinking of this, Huang Quan observed more carefully. But the living room is still a living room. No matter how luxurious it is, there is nothing that can make him feel a little bit excited again. Beside, there was faint discussion from Cass and others. How did Art and Mamoru die? Cass suppressed his anger and stared at Lumiu fiercely. He never imagined that every time he cooperated with regular gangs, he would encounter such a high-level assassination attack, and 2 good guys were killed in less than a day. When Puyi heard the news, he was surprised, ridiculous feeling. Anger also emerged. It's just that this anger is not directed at the dead guy. Death has always been a normal and trivial matter in Meteor Street, but the other party did not give corresponding information about the enemy at the beginning, which led to such a crisis. This is Cass's anger, the main reason. Please calm, Butler Liamu said expressionlessly. The master has already told us that we will discuss this matter with the Mountain Beast Elders, and the deceased will be compensated with precious collections accordingly, based on the number of deaths. Very reasonable. Hearing this, Cass's anger dissipated instantly, and Bataru on the side even showed a kind and generous smile. Obviously, they were very satisfied with this price. As for the 2 people who died, they had already forgotten them. Looking at the disgusting scene, Huang Quan frowned and glanced at the other 2 people. The cloaked man still hid his figure with his cloak, making it elusive, while the black man whom Cass called Kavzi was drinking heavily from a bottle of red wine, not caring whether anyone died. As a result, Huang Quan was somewhat certain of his previous guess. At this time, crunch, the door on the right side of the living room opens. Wright slowly walked out of the study, holding in his hand the pitch-black box he had found earlier. Seeing this, Huang Quan immediately glanced at the box. If he guessed correctly, being suddenly called over from the defense must have something to do with the thing in Wright's hand. I just don't know if it has something to do with the throbbing feeling before. Ta. After walking to the main sofa and sitting down, Wright returned to his original calm and majestic demeanor. He opened the dark box in his hand and placed it on the coffee table, revealing the broken animal skin inside. The reason for inviting you here is very simple. It is also one of the next tests. After arriving at Yuxin, send this collection to the organizer of Nampus Auction House to participate in the next auction bidding process. Although it's just a small matter, we don't rule out that assassins will attack the holders of the collection. Are you interested? Of course, I will pay a reward of 10 million gats to the successful candidate. After saying that, Wright casually picked up the cigar prepared on the coffee table, took a deep breath after lighting the fire in Liamu, and then exhaled thick white smoke and waited for everyone's answers. However, at this moment, not far away, Huang Quan, who had a calm face, felt the suppressed throbbing in his heart, which had already fluctuated violently the moment the box was opened. He has been able to determine with certainty that the box itself may be some special closure, and the broken animal skin quietly placed in the box is definitely the main cause of the throbbing feeling. What on earth is this that can cause such big fluctuations in devil patterns? For a moment, Huang Quan's pupils flickered. Although he had the desire to touch and obtain it immediately, he was the appraiser, invited by Flipper. If he came forward at this time and wanted to take over the test task, it would obviously cause Cass and others to suspicion. Ever since he learned that 2 people had died, but he seemed to be unscathed, Huang Quan had noticed the strange behavior of Cass and others coming over from time to time. Surprised, or scared? I don't know yet. But it was obvious that Cass and others had become wary of him. If I were to show up at this time? A glimmer of light flashed in Huang Quan's eyes. Is this unexpected collection worth his temporary change of plans? Not interested. Kofusi, who took a sip of red wine without a trace of drunkenness on his face, looked at the expressions of Wright and others and waved his hand in refusal. It's only 10 million yuan. It won't last long in Meteor Street. It's not cost-effective. A good deal. The cloaked man Peng Lai didn't speak, he just turned his head to face Cass, clearly showing that he was following Cass's arrangements. Shall I take a look at the collection first? Cass looked at Wright and saw him nodding in agreement, then he reached out and moved the black box, carefully examining the strange and mutilated words recorded on the hide, as well as the material of the hide. After inspecting it for a long time, he and Batulu found nothing special about the collection despite their half-assed appraisal level. Can you tell me some information about this collection? Wright gave Cass a strange look. Since he doesn't understand identification, why does this guy pretend to do an inspection? The specific information is unknown. I just acquired this collection not long ago, and I bought it casually at the Pendu underground auction house closest to Cali. The professional appraiser over there just introduced that this is a piece of inherited information left by a clustered tribe in ancient times. Cough. Is it something inherited from the tribe? It's quite common. Feeling a little embarrassed, Cass coughed, looked at Batulu, and immediately remembered the professional appraiser he hired. Quan, come and take a look. Seeing Wright's confused look, Cass patiently explained. According to the elder's judgment, his appraisal level is comparable to that of the top appraisers. This time the elder asked us to bring him here for the subsequent collection auction. Oh, hearing this, Lu Mu and others looked at Huang Quan, who was at the back, in surprise. It seems that Huang Quan, who has always had a weak sense of presence, would have such powerful identification skills and be personally invited by the mountain beast. Despair. The opportunity has come. The sudden invitation did not change Huang Quan's expression. Under the gaze of everyone, he calmly and slowly took out a clean white handkerchief to wipe his hands, and walked to the black box in a professional manner. Then, he picked up the black box with his left hand and the soft animal skin with his right hand. In an instant, devil patterns changed rapidly in his mind. Shy box complete. Quality. Rare. Year. 2677. Note. The closed box is made from the rare plant mimosa collected by the Eatquel tribe. The shyness of the mimosa tree will completely seal all the smells in the box at the moment of closing. Note. It is attached with the thought of the Eat Magpie clan, which can be absorbed. Oh. The first thing that appeared was the news about the black box. After browsing the news related to the shy box, Huang Quan suppressed the emotion of wanting to absorb the energy and looked forward to the next appearance of the devil marks. In a blink, the demon pattern changed again. Dark Sonata. Harp score incomplete. Quality. Legend incomplete. Year. Unknown. Note. The solo composed by the legendary Demon King can be played by 4 instruments including piano, violin, flute, and harp. When humans play or listen to it, they will inevitably encounter unimaginable terrible disasters. Note. This skin is made from the core abdominal skin of the Warcraft Guiamala, which can withstand the erosion of time for thousands of years. Note. There is a lot of resentment attached to it, which can be absorbed. Dark Sonata. Seeing this, Huang Quan's pupils shrank, and at the same time, the strange words that faded out on the unknown animal skin, at the moment he suddenly understood it, seemed to turn into a black and incomplete skeleton devil in an instant, making bursts of blood-curdling roars, and turned around. And in an instant, it turned into a graceful musical spirit and danced gracefully, attracting his mental attention silently. Gradually, Huang Quan's clear pupils became hollow little by little. Thumping. The suppressed throbbing feeling in my heart lacked Huang Quan's restraint, and suddenly became violently restless. But because of this, Huang Quan, who had unknowingly fallen into the hallucination of resentment in Dark Sonata, was instantly awakened. Wow! The hairs all over his body stood up. Huang Quan, who had come back to his senses, resisted the shock and the desire to absorb. He forcibly moved his eyes away from the incomplete Dark Sonata, put the lid on the shy box, and placed it as quietly as possible on the coffee table. Then, under the gaze of everyone, Huang Quan said calmly, "This is indeed an inherited record from a certain tribe. It should be around 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. It is considered a quite ancient book like antiquities. For those who like this for a class of collectors, it has great market value. If you want to know more, you can go to the auction house and ask a more professional appraisal master to conduct appraisal." I see. Wright was stunned after hearing this. He glanced at Huang Quan in surprise, and then asked in confusion, "Then what is written on it? If it's just a tribe's heritage message, why would the mysterious Pandora be interested in it?" Wright had no doubts about the information provided by his daughter Ani. That was the great predictive ability that allowed their family to reach this point easily. How could it be wrong? After interpreting the prophetic information for a long time, Wright was able to decipher the key points in the prophetic verses in a short period of time, especially the prediction of the demise of his family, which really frightened him. This is why he rushed to summon Meteor Street and others. As long as the prophecy is handed over to the most powerful Nampus auction house in Yuxin, you may be able to ask for the attention of Pandora. How could Letnosla, who had set his target as the 10 old men, allow the family he had worked so hard to establish to be destroyed by an unknown force? Do not know. Faced with Wright's doubts, Huang Quan said calmly, "The reason why I can identify its origin is because I have seen the interpretation of the name Eatquel tribe. The other characters are incomplete, and their tribe has long been extinct. It's impossible to understand." 9 out of 10 sentences were false. In order to reduce people's attention to the score as much as possible, he could only temporarily fabricate it based on relevant information. So, the purpose of Pandora is the information recorded above. Wright's doubts disappeared. He looked at Cass and said calmly, "The intelligence information is here, do you want to accept it or not?" Looking at each other with Batulu and others, Cass's expression changed. He thought for a while and finally shook his head. "No. According to Elder Fripp's instructions, we must attend the subsequent Nampus auction house. Should the Elder have reminded you? The mission as a bodyguard is for the incidental matters of the auction." Wright frowned slightly and looked at Batulu. "And you? Feel sorry." Batulu shrugged and shook his head. Finally, Wright looked at Quan and asked with a livid face without any hope. Cass has just said that Huang Quan was the appraiser they invited, and he showed professional appraisal skills during the period. How could such a talent? Gotta pay more. Izumi kid. In Wright's surprised gaze, Huang Quan ignored the gloomy gazes of Cass and others, rubbed his fingers with his right hand, and said with a slight smile, "Money can make the world go round. I will increase the remuneration to 100 million, and I will give up on this contract." Increasing the remuneration is only secondary. At this moment, in Huang Quan's mind, the importance of Cass and others has fallen to the second goal. At present, the most important thing is to obtain Dark Sonata and absorb the resentment above. Huang Quan is very clear that the biggest gap between him and the senior top performers is his accumulation of chi. This is a process that every latecomer must distance themselves from. If you want to catch up with the former, you must rely on the accumulation of time and necessary talent. Huang Quan, who has devil marks, can use this ability to minimize the gap with top nin people and grow rapidly by absorbing thoughts from the outside world. Only by growing stronger quickly can you avoid dying halfway along the journey. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Cass gritted his teeth and spoke with a slightly ferocious voice. Have you forgotten what the elders told you? Don't forget the spiders on Meteor Street. If you can, go kill Crollo and the others now. Rolling his eyes secretly, Huang Quan swallowed back the words he wanted to complain about, smiled slightly and said, "Please calm down your expression, Dr. Cass. You should also know that Spider is very short of funds recently. It's a rare opportunity to make some extra money. Why wouldn't I be active? Besides, it's only a journey from Yuxin Airport to Nanpas Auction House. I will definitely arrive at the auction on time to help the elders collect precious collections." Before Cass could speak, Wright, who vaguely sensed something was wrong, stretched out the 5 fingers of his right hand, looked at Huang Quan and said calmly, "It's only 100 million nuns, I agree. But..." At this time, Butler Liamu behind him understood Wright's gesture, took out a bank card from his left sleeve pocket and handed it over respectfully. "There is a condition." Wright took the bank card and threw it directly towards Huang Quan. The bearer bank card contains 50 million ringgits. You can withdraw cash from Palace Bank all over the world. The password is 68. The conditions are very simple. From the moment I hand over this collection to you after getting off the plane, and before arriving at the Nanpei auction house, if the collection is lost or the collection is not registered before the auction starts, the remaining 50 million or so ordained nuns will be deducted directly. Is there any problem? It makes sense. Glancing at Kavzi's unscrupulous greed, Huang Quan put away the Plus bank card, nodded to Wright and said calmly, "If I don't arrive within the stipulated time, it means that I have been killed. It doesn't matter whether I am a nun or not. I agree to the condition." Brat. With a hint of murderous intent, Cass and Batulu stared at Huang Quan coldly. But K. Fuxi still had a greedy look on his face, and only Peng Lai, who was covered by his cloak, didn't show the slightest expression, but Huang Quan could feel the other party's occasional secret peeping. Interesting. The corners of Huang Quan's mouth raised slightly. When Wright saw that someone had taken over the dangerous object, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately asked Lu Mu to take everyone out, while he returned to the study with the box. Time flies. On the evening of August 31st. Inside the spaceship. In the next 10 hours of defense, there were no assassinations like the previous gang. It seemed that the previous Nen were all the assassins on the spacecraft. Pat, looking out the window at the increasing rows of large spaceships, Huang Quan, who had not slept all night, yawned and waited for the spacecraft to slowly land at Yuxin Airport. As a prosperous and decadent auction city, Yuxin Airport is also extremely luxurious. It has a vast area several times larger than Cali City Airport, filled with various types of spaceships, and a sea of passengers, quantity. Looking down from the window of the spacecraft, we can see a crowd of people like ants. But even with such a huge airport, their spacecraft still had to queue up to land. About half an hour later, the spacecraft that had been hovering in midair and waiting finally landed at the airport. Huang Quan and others had already met up with Wright and others. When the cabin door of the spaceship opened, they followed the guidance of Butler Liamu and passed through the airport VIP passage to the floor dedicated to parking vehicles. There are 10 brand new black luxury cars parked and waiting here in an orderly manner. There was no conversation during this period. As Letnian and others entered the vehicle, Cass and others looked at Huang Quan coldly and then got into other vehicles. PLZ, follow me. At this time, the bald gangster security guard Huang Quan had seen last night came over, handed him a small brown backpack, and pointed to the unoccupied vehicle at the back. The housekeeper ordered. The car will take you to the city of Yuxin. Thank you. After opening the backpack and touching the black box inside, and confirming that the information showed to be genuine, Huang Quan waved his hand, ignored the cold and ferocious looks from Cass and others, and walked straight to the end and got in the car. At this moment, there was only one gang member with a snake-shaped tattoo on the left side of his face and sunglasses in the car acting as the driver. After Huang Quan got in the car, he just looked through the rearview mirror and remained silent. The interior decoration of the car is low-key and luxurious, with refrigerators and other standard features of luxury cars. There are also some introductory books and related maps about Yuxin auction house placed next to the door. Seeing this, Huang Quan reached out and took out the map, took a rough look at it, and wrote down all the specific routes to the Nanpi's auction house in the city center. At the same time, the vehicle followed the convoy and drove towards the urban area of Yuxin. It did not break away from the convoy until it left the airport at a three-way intersection and headed towards the leftmost lane. As for Nasla and others, the convoy he was in headed to the far right. Not long after, as the vehicle accelerated, the two sides completely moved away and disappeared into the vast and desolate Gobi Rock area. Gululu. The speed of the vehicle is getting faster and faster. Glancing at the desolate scene and few vehicles outside the window, Huang Quan looked down at the Yuxin map and said calmly, "Why not take the middle lane? If you want to go to Yuxin City through this lane, at least you can. Will it take 2 or 3 hours?" The gangsters in front were silent for a while, and then a hoarse voice came out. "This is the route arranged by the butler. My mission is to take you safely to the city. I don't know anything else. So this is it." The words were not spoken. "Call out." The black sword flashed. Phew. The tattooed gang members in front, including the cab seats, were directly penetrated by the sharp black demon. The fragment-like blade was like a blood groove, and the blood was continuously absorbed by it. Puff. The blood gushes out of the throat uncontrollably, and the tattooed gang member's eyes widen in disbelief, staring at the expressionless face in the rearview mirror. Why? Why? Kill me. There are 2 reasons. As the car lost control and rushed into the Gobi Rock area on the left, Huang Quan sat firmly in the back seat, holding the Black Devil in his right hand, and said calmly. First, people who use Zetsu often overlook one thing, that is, if all the breath is isolated, the user's sense of existence will become extremely weak, and your Zetsu that seems to be proficient in constantly changing the frequency, it's full of holes in my eyes. No. Impossible. Si Chinin's pupils shrank sharply, and his heavy body shrouded in black energy was unable to break free. Under the blood-sucking characteristics of the Black Devil, his face quickly turned pale. You are so young. CCFC should. First you have to understand that geniuses exist in this world. Huang Quan said calmly. Secondly, that is the second reason. Before getting off the spacecraft, Butler Liamu once said casually, that he would arrange for me to take the middle lane at the 3-way intersection. It is obvious that the spies you arranged for the Nasla family did not realize the importance of this sentence. Quote. Crazy. The tattooed man's eyes became blurry and dull, and he could never imagine that this was the reason why the other party took action. Boom boom boom. The out-of-control vehicle driving into the Gobi shook violently. Anyway, Huang Quan asked with interest, how many powerful nin are there in Pandora? Why are you so interested in this collection? However, the tattooed man who lost too much blood fell into darkness and died completely in absurd emotions. His body functions gradually declined until his body became stiff. Pity. Seeing this, Huang Quan pulled out the Black Devil, grabbed his backpack and map, gathered energy with his right foot and kicked the locked car door out, and quickly dodged out when the vehicle hit the rock wall. Boom. The violent impact caused the vehicle to dent and fall into a roaring explosion. This scene really surprised Huang Zong. I originally planned to search to see if there were any cards, but it turned out that it exploded so easily, and even the corpses and traces were destroyed so smoothly. Could it be that there was a bomb prepared in the car? Huang Quan frowned and faced the air waves. He glanced at the open driveway in the distance, thought about it, and finally turned around and walked into the desolate gobi. If he was the one to arrange the plan, he would definitely arrange a response person somewhere in the lane. With the strength he showed last night, unless the intelligence spies who belong to Pandora are novices, it is impossible that they will not arrange personnel to target them. The premise is that their goal is really the score of Dark Sonata. While thinking, Huang Quan's figure disappeared into the Gobi area. Now, about 30 kilometers away from where the vehicle exploded, 5 figures emitting powerful auras were quietly waiting for the target to arrive on the roadside. After waiting for a long time, dusk faded into the horizon, but the scheduled vehicle never arrived. The expressions of the 5 people from Pandora changed drastically, and they quickly rushed along the avenue towards the airport. Night falls. The top of a certain cliff. Looking at the looming city with the bustling lights in the distance, Huang Quan, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his backpack and took out the pitch-black, shy box from inside. Does the box need to be absorbed? After hesitating for a moment, Huang Quan opened the box, took out the broken harp score of Dark Sonata with his right hand, and then put the shy box aside. He planned to see the absorption effect of the music score first. If it was not ideal, it would be absorbed in the shy box. If it was good, he would keep it temporarily. After all, things that can isolate and seal the aura of Dark Sonata are indeed rare. His right hand touched the incomplete music score, and the words on the music score gradually distorted and various fantasies emerged in his mind. Seeing this, Huang Quan no longer hesitated. Absorb. The moment the thought emerges, the harp fragments of Dark Sonata written on the broken animal's skin seemed to be sucked by huge gravity. Invisible thick black smoke emerged from the faded fonts. Ah! The extremely sad and shrill sound sounded in Huang Quan's ears like an auditory hallucination. However, under the absorption effect of devil pattern, the hallucination of the music score could no longer affect his consciousness. In an instant, all the thick black smoke formed by resentment was seen entering Huang Quan's body as if it was being sucked into a range hood. The potential air volume in his body, which was as big as a volleyball, seemed to be inflated very quickly. Double, twice, until it increases to nearly 3.5 times the original chi volume, and the resentment absorbed gradually slows down. At the same time, the hallucinations that no longer affected Huang Quan seemed to be under the influence of devil patterns, and memory pictures flashed through his mind. The silent scene revealed the scene of a primitive tribe kneeling around the animal skin and praying. It's just that the Dark Sonata in the picture is 4 complete pages the size of a book. Then as time passes rapidly, the screen flashes faster and faster, and the 4 complete Dark Sonata disappears and scatters with the demise of the tribe. The next scenes are all related to the harp version of Dark Sonata. The Jamara hide, which should have been indelible in the invasion of time, has encountered various wars in history and has been held by hundreds or thousands of people in the intermittent picture memory. Greed, destruction, fear. Every time an intelligent creature understands the meaning of the words on the animal skin, it will slowly be aroused by the Dark Sonata until it plays the harp score created by the legendary devil. Finally, it died in the sound of disaster and became a black smoke of resentment on the score. Quite a while, the memory image faded and was absorbed and digested by Huang Quan. Opening his eyes and looking into the dark night, as long as he recalled the information he had just absorbed, the corresponding picture would appear in his mind. Isn't this considered a different kind of knowledge inheritance? Huang Quan smiled. After absorbing and digesting these memory images, he felt that he had become perfect with the harp that he was supposed to be familiar with. It was as if there was a harp-like instrument placed in front of him now, he could directly play what he wanted to play. The music of the harp. A score of Dark Sonata, only one of 3 pieces, has been deeply remembered by him. At the same time, the location where the broken harp music scores were scattered also appeared in his mind. However, hundreds or thousands of years had passed, and it was unknown whether the remaining music scores were still where they appeared in his memory. Thinking of this, Huang Quan focused on the changes in chi volume. If the absorption effect is not good, then there is no need to search for and collect the remaining broken music scores. The moment he felt it, Huang Quan was slightly surprised by the powerful life energy contained in his body. If you have to find an object to describe it, it's like the potential energy volume increased to a small refrigerator, which will give him a more durable and powerful fighting time. Based on Huang Quan's rough estimate, with the current potential energy volume, the manifest energy volume can be released to the maximum extent, which can last for at least half an hour. The specific time needs to be tested to determine. Converging the energy that expanded to the point outside the body into the body with Tangle, Huang Quan looked at the devil pattern in his mind, and the information on the improvement of each system on it had already appeared. Power system. Nian. Enhancement system. Thought capacity expansion by 9%. Conjurer. Thought capacity expansion 13%. Transmuter. Reading capacity expansion 5%, 15%. Emitter. Thought capacity expansion 4%, 8%. Manipulator. 13% capacity expansion. Trait system. Thought capacity expansion 9%, 15%. Note. Transmuter capacity is expanded by 15%, constraints and oaths +1. Note. The capacity of the trait system is expanded by 15%, and the restriction and oath +1. In addition to Enhancer, Conjurer, and Manipulator, the order capacity of the other three series has been greatly expanded. In particular, Transmuter and Trait System have gained an opportunity to increase their mental capacity and develop corresponding Nen. This is slightly different from what Huang Quan expected at the beginning. He originally thought that the first one to be improved tonight would be the Enhanced System, but after all, it was just a little bit behind. If it were a complete Dark Sonata, it could at least be improved to over 20 to 30%, right? Huang Quan's eyes flashed with strange color. The location of the remaining music scores he had obtained before was immediately remembered in his mind. How could you ignore such a great tonic? Moreover, Huang Quan is also very interested in the other three versions of Dark Sonata scores. It's a pity that the three music scores have long disappeared in my memory. In the original work, it seems that Melody became like that because she played Dark Sonata once, right? So it seems that she has relevant intelligence information in her hands or around her. Thinking about this, Huang Quan couldn't help but touch his chin. His only impression of the melody was related to Dark Sonata, but there was too little information and he didn't pay much attention to it at the time. I don't know if Melody has suffered that disaster caused by the sonata due to playing Dark Sonata at this time. I wonder if I can find her contact information. Demonstrating the Devil's Gate, Huang Quan pointed his fingertips into the void, and the air gate appeared instantly. Picking up the backpack and shy box, he opened the door and walked into the different space. What caught Huang Quan's eyes were the three Maki people who were practicing various applied skills. Spring. Captain, I can't hold it in anymore. Before Huang Quan could reply, the three of them immediately ended their practice and rushed out of the air door that had not been closed as if they couldn't wait. Forehead. I forgot to let them out for convenience. After looking at the three people outside the green space and quickly running out of sight, Huang Quan stretched his hands around his face and walked to the sofa area. He found a black box of a similar style and put the increasingly obsolete animal skin music scores in the shy box into an ordinary box, while the shy box was placed on a specially found shelf. At this moment, other collections they are also placed on top. Looking at the scope of the green space, due to the sudden increase in chi volume, it has expanded from the original 200 meters to 700 meters in radius. The same is true for the scope of observing the outside world. No wonder Maki and Shizuku ran so far apart from Shalnark. What's so good about a brat? Can't you just let me go out with you? Shaking his head, Huang Quan slowly sat on the sofa, staring at the outside Gobi area with dull eyes, while thinking about the next development of Nen in his mind. The expansion of thought capacity means that the transmuter and time systems are ready for development. But in which direction he wants to develop, he has not yet made a decision. After thinking for a moment, Huang Quan put the trait system on hold for a while. After all, the constraints and vows of his trait system have always been retained, waiting to be tested to see if there is a double bonus effect. Now the conditions must be met without care. Then develop transmuter first. 4. Chapter 91. Thoughts work. The information related to transmuter comes to mind and is organized. Transmuter. The main advantage is that chi can still maintain its power outside the body, which is different from the gate of light and heaviness black and white thought chi he released during the previous battle. In several battles, his use of light and heavy mental energy was based on the extension of conjurer. Whether it was from the limbs, body or black demon, he fought with advanced application skills such as Jo and condensation. The mind is not separated from the original body. Unlike transmuter, the chi of this system can be emitted far away from the body. At the same time, after releasing the chi away from the body, the released chi can change the appearance, attack the enemy, or execute commands. To put it simply, if you want to use chi outside the body, you will use this kind of attribute, and the farther the distance, the more obvious it will be. Some nyen formed through training can even achieve the effect of teleportation, and transmuter also goes well with nyen beast. The nyen beast developed by transmuter not only he only has special abilities and even has a certain sense of independence. In the original work, the transmuter nen that Huang Quan can think of include Lirio, Franklin, Guo Shinu and Lisa. The first is the ultrasonic-like transmuter nen displayed by Lirio. He once punched Jin from the air and was easily learned by Jin to show a different style. Franklin's nen, with Huang Quan's knowledge at the moment, naturally knew that the other party's ability development was mainly focused on the power and quantity of the teleportation bullets belonging to transmuter. Nen of Guoshanu seems to prefer the mind-beast system in transmuter. The two different mind-beast replacement abilities are quite useful in moments of life and death crisis. In the last Lisa, Huang Quan speculated that the opponent seemed to be taking a balanced route, both Nyen Beast and Nyen Bullet were involved. Under the influence of strong energy and advanced application skills, they should not be underestimated. There are too many elements, so try to simplify them. Single quote. Huang Quan frowned slightly, opened the drink on the coffee table and took a sip. Various ideas appeared in his mind, and they were constantly overturned and resurfaced. If transmuter's attack method is mainly based on the psychic bullet system, does it mean that the released chi can be modified to have characteristics such as segmentation, covering, and moving space? If not, pure mental energy would be meaningless to Huang Quan. Rather than that, it would be better to launch light and heavy mental energy. Converging the idea that diffusion is a concept, Huang Quan turned his attention to the gate feature, which is the basis for all nen he has developed so far. If we extend the ability of transmuter from the perspective of gate. Currently, Huang Quan has several capabilities envisioned. One is based on the door with the characteristics of space and derived and developed destructive space division, cutting and other thoughts, which can supplement the lack of medium and long-range lethality. And the chi released can also change its shape as needed. The second is to use the psychic beast system as the mainstay and develop autonomous telepathic beasts similar to gate. The characteristics are best related to auxiliary characteristics such as position replacement or defense absorption. The third one is based on the characteristics of gate of light and heaviness, which allows the light and heavy mental energy to escape the confines of the body, and has a medium and long-range attack assistance effect. However, it involves conjurer, so I don't know if it is possible. The fourth is related to air gate, which uses transmuter to release air gate at any distance. However, in this way, transmuter will become a purely auxiliary ability, and it is connected to the manipulator. Tai. The last thing is related to the door characteristic of trait system. A door with the characteristics of opening and closing has not been developed yet. If we can get rid of the shackles of touch restrictions and use transmuter way to open the door at will from a long distance. Just thinking about Huang Quan, he can imagine how mobile he will be by then. And the most important thing is that so far, there have not been a few things that cannot open the door with the door property. These 5 ideas are the hitting abilities that Huang Quan can think of that are most in line with actual logic and can be easily developed and implemented. In addition, he has also imagined conceptual ideas, such as long-distance teleportation gates, various attribute element gates, positioning mark gates, time series gates, etc. He has imagined various abilities such as this. It's just that although thoughts are extremely formable, their essence cannot be separated from the person's own experience, imagination and corresponding obsessions, and that are consistent with their logic. Most of the conceptual ideas are not impossible for Huang Quan to realize. As long as he grasps the essence of the ability, he may be able to realize it, but it will take a lot of time, and some abilities are not just transmuter. Just choose from a few alternatives. As long as you absorb enough mental tools in the future, you can try it slowly. Recalling the few ideas he had picked out before, Huang Quan glanced at the three people who came back one after another, closed and eliminated the air door, said hello casually, and continued to meditate. See this. Maki and others looked at each other, then took the initiative to distance themselves and continued to practice the Nen technique. The space was large enough for the four of them to distance themselves without disturbing each other. No, we have to consider it from a practical point of view. Arranging several assumptions in his mind, Huang Quan thought about the abilities he currently possesses and lacks. The function of devil pattern is to absorb various thoughts and present relevant information, and to consume thought energy to identify the things he wants to know. The gate characteristic is the trait system ability that comes with him after time travel and awakening thought, which is linked to the devil fruit eaten in his previous life. Whether it is devil pattern or other abilities, they are all extended from the gate. It has opening and closing characteristics, and the door can be opened and closed by touching the object. Devil's Gate is extended from gate and manifested by the expanded thought capacity. It belongs to manipulator Nen. Its main function is to open and close the air gate of nothingness, but it does not have lethality. Gate of Light and Heaviness is an ability derived from the weight of gate, which gives chi, the ability to adjust weight, lacks lethality, and has balanced offensive and defensive capabilities. Much clearer. Huang Quan was thoughtful. It can be seen from Nen under development that his current abilities are mainly auxiliary features and does not have enough direct damage capabilities. The second is the speed ability. Although light air can make the body lighter and increase a certain speed, if he encounters a Nen such as space transfer and teleportation, he estimates that he can't even touch the enemy's exhaust. The third healing property has no ability. The fourth specialized defensive characteristic ability is non-existent, and the weight of chi enhancement is only reflected in physical strength. The fifth control characteristic ability, Gate of Light and Heaviness, may be relevant. Sixth, seventh, eighth. Cough. There is indeed a lot missing. Fingertips circled his face. Huang Quan didn't expect that just by counting a little, he found that he lacked a lot of abilities. After all, he was different from other Nen people. If he didn't have devil patterns to increase thinking capacity, he would definitely be deep. Discover the state capability attributes that development belongs to. Long-range lethality. Also, if you want to avoid being kited by the enemy, necessary long-range means are still needed. A trade-off. Finally, it is based on the lethality characteristics. With this thought, Huang Quan no longer hesitated. Choose the mid to long-range lethality characteristic, currently the most suitable space characteristic. Whether it is opening or closing the door, the most essential thing is space. In One Piece, the door fruit is an extremely rare space fruit. Although it was restricted due to world rules after coming to the Hunter world, it remains true to its origins. And through the previous development of Air Door, Huang Quan already has a corresponding level of understanding of space. Spatial characteristics are a large system. It contains many features, such as space movement, teleportation, air retrieval, space creation, space replication, space circulation, space compression, space expansion, space cutting, space control, space absorption, etc. There are countless. Since he chose to use the space characteristic as the main ability of transmuter, many ideas about space flashed through Huang Quan's mind. Combining release and the lethality of medium and long distances, the idea finally settled on space cutting. Space cutting. As the name suggests, it is the ability to cut, split, twist, and separate space. According to 22 the capabilities envisioned by Huang Quan. The capabilities of space cutting can be roughly divided into two categories. One type is to cut or tear the space where you are, making it into multiple isolated spaces or dislocated spaces. However, this type of space cutting does not connect different dimensions, but only cuts apart the same space where the patient is located. The second type is to cut or tear the barrier between the space where you are and the space of another dimension. It is similar to the air gate but is essentially different. The purpose of cutting is to create two different dimensional spaces, cracks and interconnected. This type of space cutting can cause things in different dimensional spaces to interfere with each other. It is more similar to Kakashi's Sharingan ability in the Naruto world, and Luo's surgery fruit ability in the One Piece world. Now that the lethality characteristics have been determined, Huang Quan can only temporarily postpone the second category and focus on the development of the first category. Determining the goal in his heart, Huang Quan focused on imagining the logical picture related to space cutting in his mind, and at the same time imposed transmuters restrictions and oaths on himself. Make rules, make a vow in your heart, and stick to them. Expanded mind capacity accommodates thoughts. Unconsciously, the Devil's Gate book in Huang Quan's hand turned to a blank page, and text information about the transmuter's ability appeared. Transmuter. The Gate of Space Cutting. Ability characteristic. Cutting. Effect. The chi released has the characteristics of cutting, chopping, twisting, and separating the space in which it is located. The farther the distance, the more targets will be cut, and the greater the energy consumed. Restrictions. When using space cutting mind energy, space perception will change accordingly with the frequency of space cutting. Oath. Once the concepts related to space are forgotten, the ability to cut space will gradually weaken until it disappears. As the restrictions and oaths continue to deepen in my heart, Huang Quan's perception has also become more and more acute, but the direction of sensitivity is biased towards the sense of space. For example, at this moment, the air gate alien space he was in was no longer just a space, but more like vaguely visible threads dividing the alien space into countless areas, which made him a little dazzled. Looking towards Maki and others, they are also covered with irregular cracks, as if they can be easily cut off by following these cracks. This weird emotion made Huang Quan's pupils shrink sharply. Fortunately, this kind of perception does not last long. After the space cutting characteristic is derived, the keen perception gradually fades away until the original visual world is restored, and the cracks and gaps disappear without a trace like an illusion. Perceptual fluctuations from space. Looking down at the information displayed on the Devil's Gate, Huang Quan thought for a moment, closed the book gently, then stood up and pointed into the void. The air gate appeared instantly, and then he opened the door and walked out of the outside world. Despair. Under the moonlight, Huang Quan glanced around, his sight fixed on a rock 2 or 3 meters high, and then used flow to control his mental energy to condense in his right hand. At this moment, the thought energy that should have been black and white turned into a faint black and white color. As the energy continued to condense and increase, the black and white color gradually faded away, forming a colorless phase-like space, which was hidden and dangerous. When the Nian Qi formed in the palm of Huang Quan's right hand, it formed a crescent-like colorless Nian Qi. Aiming at the middle section of the rock, he gently threw it out with his right hand, and the colorless Qi disappeared instantly. The next moment, boom, boom, I saw the top half of the rock 10 meters away, leaning heavily and falling down the cliff. The oblique section of the remaining half of the rock looked extremely smooth at the moment, as if it had been carefully carved by nature, with no cutting edges visible at all. Trace. Space is restoring itself faster than I thought. Huang Quan was thoughtful. Just now, he noticed that the thought energy with the characteristics of space cutting swept through the middle of the rock, and indeed created a space crack at the attack point. Although the space crack was only as thin as a cicada, the space was actually cut open in that instant. However, the speed of self-repair of the space in this world was far beyond his imagination. It seemed that in just a few tenths of a second, the space was repaired. Complete the space. Interesting. After that, with the concept of experimental testing effect, Huang Quan caught this rock and used transmuters, space cutting, to try to separate it into one piece, multiple pieces, thick pieces, twisting, splitting, etc. Only when you are sure that you can skillfully change the form of qi can you return to the air gate center. But before he could reach the sofa, he could replenish the energy he had just consumed. Captain! Shizuku's shout suddenly sounded. Suddenly, not only Huang Quan but also Maki and Shalnark, who were practicing, turned to look over. 200 to 300 meters away. Shizuku pointed to the outside world where he was, and said in a daze, "Daughter, they here to find you." Leader. Looking for me. At this, Liang raised his eyebrows slightly and quickly took a closer look. With just one glance, I saw 5 figures in different attires, scattered as if looking for something, but the distance was not far apart. It seemed that as long as one person was fighting, the others would be able to provide timely support. It should have been sent here by the so-called Pandora, right? Walking behind Huang Quan and watching the silent scene outside, Shalnark said calmly, they suddenly appeared in this deserted Gobi area at night. They looked like they were searching. Apart from looking for the leader, I couldn't think of anything else. There are other possibilities. Speaking of this, Shalnark said with some confusion, but I don't understand why those guys are so obsessed with the collection in the hands of the group leader. It is impossible for the organizational power that can enable so many Nen to mobilize, it lacks this a collection, right? It's said to be doubtful, but actually it's curiosity. Not only Shalnark, but also Maki and Shizuku looked puzzled, but their childlike peaks from time to time made Huang Quan feel a little funny. Okay, if you want to ask, just be direct, there is nothing to keep secret. Watching the 5 outsiders groping towards the top of the cliff before they seemed prepared, Huang Quan led the 3 of them across a different space and followed them while walking behind them. Because that collection contains Dark Sonata. Dark Sonata, what is that? It should be the torn animal skin, right? That's right. Faced with the doubts of the 3 people, Huang Quan did not hide anything. His demand for antiquities has always been his obsession. As for the original object, he did not think it was important. At most, he would keep it at auction for money. Let's put it this way. Dark Sonata is a solo piece created by the Demon King in legend. When humans listen or play it, they will inevitably suffer unimaginable terrible disasters. The box contains a passage from the sonata. Ah! Maki covered his mouth and looked at the black box on the coffee table in front of him in surprise. It turns out to be such a powerful thing. But the animal skin is obviously torn. Maybe Pandora has other animal skins on hand. After contacting all the information, Shalnark suddenly said, so that's it. No wonder they would go to this extent for a collection. What should we do next? Captain, looking at the 5 people searching carefully on the top of the cliff, Shalnark made a calm judgment. If I choose to take action, with my current strength, Shizuku and Maki's, I can probably hold them down for 2 or 3 minutes. This is compared to the strength of those assassins last night. Not urgent. Huang Quan looked at the 5 people outside, his calm eyes exuding coldness. Now is not a good time to take action. Before he finished speaking, the sound storage air door opened in a hidden corner, and the sounds from the outside world were clearly transmitted into the different space. Doctor, does your tracking ability work anymore? Outside, there is an extremely fat figure about 1.7 meters tall with a deep voice. We've been chasing him until midnight, but we haven't found any trace yet. Are we chasing him in the wrong direction? That kid named Quan didn't go to this location at all. Shut up, Dogtooth. Squatting on the ground, the doctor carefully looked at several different locations. Wearing a white coat and a mask, he said in a muffled voice, my ability is in logistics. It would be good to be able to track down here. You see, there are at least 4 people on the ground. Among the footprints, there is one of our goals. It's just a little strange. In addition to the target, the other 3 suddenly appeared and then suddenly disappeared. The doctor, who was standing at the messy footprints, completely failed to notice that in a different space only 2 fists away from him, 4 people were looking at him coldly. Maybe 2 groups of strangers met here, right? Canine Yurao shook his bald head and said impatiently, don't worry about this for now. If that brat breaks into Yuxin City, the high-sequence P potion will not be available to us. High-sequence P agent, what is this time? Hearing this sentence, Huang Quan narrowed his eyes slightly. Obviously, the false information he logged in at the Cali City airport has been obtained by Pandora, but I don't know if the other party has collected the identity of Meteor Street. And listening to what this fat man meant, Pandora was rewarded with formation and drove these people to seize Dark Sonata. If you just have this time, why not spend some money to auction it off at Nampai's auction house? Even his information was collected. Huang Quan did not believe that Pandora would not know the information that the collection would be sent for auction. Pandora doesn't want others to discover the true information of the collection, but can the master appraiser at the Nampus auction house identify Dark Sonata? Could it be that Pandora wants to avoid conflict with 10 old men? Complex thoughts kept passing through. Outside world. If you don't want to die, Canine Fang, you'd better shut your dog mouth. At this time, the tall man standing on the edge of the cliff, nearly 2 meters tall, stared at the canine teeth and said coldly, "You should be very clear about the consequences of revealing too much information about the group. Don't forget where your nen came from. The listener sent by the group is not a decoration." Hearing the words, listener, the expression on Qian Ya's fat face changed uncertainly, and he closed his mouth tightly in fear. At this time, not only him, but also the doctor and others next to him had the same expression. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. In the evening breeze, there was only the rustle of 5 people moving slightly in search. Different space. Group means company, right? Fidgeting with his mobile phone, Shalnark read the information downloaded on the spacecraft and analyzed, but on the public website on the spacecraft, I did not find any information about Pandora. Since it is a group, doesn't it mean that this company is very big? Be famous? Maybe it's just a code name. Huang Quan said. It's like a name used by internal staff for their own power, or maybe Pandora's name to the outside world is the name of another group company. Anyway, Huang Quan said calmly. According to what that guy meant, this nen named Canine Fang was obtained through some means, and there was also a listener who seemed to make them awe and fear. I always feel. Speaking of this, the corners of Huang Quan's mouth raised slightly. The days to come will become more and more interesting. What do you think if I don't hand over Dark Sonata? Snapped. No, leader. Patting his forehead, Shalnark couldn't help but smile helplessly. We haven't even solved the problem with the elders, and you want to provoke a bigger and unknown enemy. Even if you want to force us to grow, you have to give us a few years to develop, right? I don't care. Maki pulled at the thread with her fingertips. As long as she can be with Quan, it doesn't matter where she goes. Click. Shizuku was eating potato chips bought from the spaceship and looking at Waiwen with a cute look on his face. He is indeed a bit young. Suddenly realizing that these people were only around 12 or 13 years old at the moment, and Shizuku was only 8 or 9 years old, Huang Quan coughed and put away some of the thoughts that popped up in his mind. That's right, it does take some time to develop. But whether we should hand over the things or not, we'll wait until we get to the Nampus auction house. Let's deal with these guys first. Watching the 5 people spreading out to search the surrounding area, Huang Quan's eyes narrowed slightly and he took the initiative to follow the guy calling the doctor. The people will be brought in later, and you, the King's 3, will be responsible for solving the problem. I need to judge your current strength level and prepare for the subsequent battle. No problem. The 3 of them, including Shizuku, nodded calmly. For this moment, the Japanese have long been prepared. The days in Meteor Street were not as comfortable as they are now. After living like this for too long, the bones of the 3 of them were really itchy. Ta ta ta. Along with the sound of footsteps, the space became silent. Maki and the other 3 followed Huang Quan without saying a word, but the chi around them had formed a transparent armor on the body surface. Walking in front, Huang Quan glanced at the scene behind him, his eyes still calm, and he was always looking at the 5 people outside. When they reached the edge of the space, the others scattered and the doctor was left alone. The air door opened instantly beside him, and a hand protruded from the void like a ghost claw. Come in. The doctor, who felt his neck being violently strangled, disappeared in a panic. Air door closed. Boom. The moment the doctor was captured by Puyi into a different space, Huang Quan's prepared left fist struck the opponent's abdomen with hard. Boom. The doctor, who had not had time to react, just had time to wrap chi around his upper body. However, under the heavy blow of Jian Tang's offensive and defensive power was insufficient, and his body showed an arch shape and hit hard at the edge of the alien space. The injured blood in the inner cavity could not be suppressed and spurted out from the mouth. Leave it to you. The doctor calmly raised his head and looked at each other. Huang Quan stepped back a few steps, leaving the battle to Maki and others, while he was responsible for holding down the battle while watching the developments outside. Perhaps because of the speed, it was not noticed by the other 4 people at this time. It's you. Kneeling on one knee, covering his injured abdomen with one hand and wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth with the other, the doctor looked at Huang Quan and the outside scene in disbelief. He had no idea that everything he and others did was under the surveillance of the target. How could there be such a thing, Nen? At this time, Maki, of the 3 people who were ready, was the first to rush out, and his right fist, which he concentrated his energy on, struck the doctor directly on the head. Seeing this, the doctor immediately dodged away in shock and anger. He glanced at Huang Quan and saw that Huang Quan had no intention of taking action. A sharp scalpel appeared in his hand. Surgical scalpel stopped bleeding. Nen started, and while Maki and others looked in astonishment, the doctor actually inserted the scalpel straight into his injured abdomen, and in the process, the ferocious and painful expression on the city's face was clearly revealed. Oh, it's related to the scalpel Nen. Seeing this scene not far away, Huang Quan raised his eyebrows and watched as Shalnark and Shizuku joined the battle one after another without giving too many reminders. He has already taught them everything that should be taught to them. All that is left is to continuously hone the skills of applying Nian Qi, to increase the amount of Qi and gain combat experience with various ninjas over time. If you want to defeat your opponent, the most important thing is to understand the opponent's intelligence, and the contact battle of life and death is the best way to train people's combat thinking. Not enough energy. Turning away from the increasingly fierce battle, Huang Quan shook his head, controlling a trace of colorless thought energy like a snake, twisting around his 5 fingers and slowly swimming around. However, as characters who appeared in the original work, Maki, Shalnark and Shizuku do have talents that are far superior to ordinary people. He could clearly feel that in a short period of time, the 3 of them had adapted to the battle between thoughts and mobilized faster and faster control and use of thoughts. The only shortcoming is the lack of energy accumulation. The 3 of them obviously noticed this during the battle, but they adopted different styles. Shalnark, who is good at calm analysis and thinking, has slowed down the pace of the battle at this moment. When he is trying to activate Nen, he launches an attack in the blind spot of the doctor's sight like an assassin. And Maki is no less willing to give in. At this moment, the silk thread formed by Qi CCFE in her hand becomes more and more slender during the battle, like a hunter hunting for prey, quietly laying silk thread traps around the doctor. When he was in Meteor Street, he saw that Maki had a special liking for silk threads, so Huang Quan followed the trend and told her some of the abilities of the thread suture that he had used in the original work and the thread fruit in One Piece. Although not long has passed, judging from the fineness of Maki's silk threads, it seems to be almost the same as in the original work. As for Shizuku, seeing the opponent's reckless fighting style, Huang Quan felt like he couldn't bear to look at him. I've talked to him many times and reminded him many times, but this little guy just likes the wild fighting style. Maybe it's because he's too young, but he always gives people a cute visual sense when fighting. But her Nen, Huang Quan did not let it be developed. He just asked her to conceive the plan first. After all, she had just awakened Nen and the foundation had not been laid yet. Under such circumstances, the Nen developed. It's often useless, especially for little ones who have a little problem with forgetfulness. In this way, minutes passed. The strength, advantages, and flaws of the 3 Maki people were all presented to Huang Quan's eyes during the battle. If we look for a reference, Shizuku's current strength is similar to that of Gon during the Sky Tower period, while Maki and Shalnark are similar to Gon, who was taught advanced application skills by Biscuit in Greed Island. Song is a little inferior in terms of Chi King. Just as Huang Quan was thinking. Doctor. From the outside world, the cry of canine teeth came. Not long after, 4 figures appeared within Huang Quan's observation range. Doctor. Hunya looked around, head puzzled. It's strange, didn't you say we gather every 5 minutes? Where is this doctor going? Call him. The tall man who seemed to be in a dominant position looked around with vigilant eyes and said coldly, I want to know if something happened to him. Impossible. On the right, a muscular figure wearing animal skins frowned and said, the distance between our searches is not far, and there are no traces of fighting here. ... Just give it a try and find out. On the left, a man in casual clothes took out a flip phone from his trouser pocket and dialed the doctor's number directly. Ring 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 ring! Exclamation mark. The number you dialed is not in the signal service area. After waiting for such a sentence for a long time, the 4 people's expressions suddenly changed, and they looked at the surrounding desert night scene with vigilance. Something happened to the doctor. Is it possible that there is no signal in this area? Impossible. Yukishin is not far from here, how could there be no letter? Calm down, call me and try. Ring 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 ring. Beep. The call is connected. Suddenly, the faces of the 4 Yinya people became more and more ugly. Something really happened. Are you kidding? Canine Ya seemed to be in disbelief and said, with the strength of the doctor, how could he disappear without a trace, without even leaving any traces or clues of the battle? There are two possibilities. The tall man looked around cautiously. Either the doctor encountered a nin who was far more powerful than him, or the other party's ability was very special and could subdue the doctor immediately. Then what next? The man in animal skin frowned. Tattoo, who is good at disguise tracking, has been killed. Now the doctor has mysteriously disappeared, and the target is nowhere to be seen. Why are you waiting here? As if he thought of something, the casual man's body was filled with thoughts, and he lowered his head and stared at the faint footprints on the ground. Do you think the target will be the same as the doctor? Don't you think they all disappeared in the same way? They all disappeared quietly without leaving any trace. Secondly, if it's as Bakusho said, and the doctor encounters a nin who is far more powerful than him, then it shouldn't be difficult to kill us all, right? Your analysis is correct. The tall man spoke coldly, looking around like a falcon. Indeed. If the opponent's strength far exceeds ours, he will definitely not act so sneakily, and there is a great possibility that he will follow us. It's related to the target being tracked. Having said this, he looked at the other three people. Next, Lix and I will be in charge of the left area. Canine, you and Turtle will be responsible for searching the right area. Once you find an enemy or target, you will release a signal immediately. Every 3 minutes, gather and exchange information. Okay. Before he finished speaking, the four of them separated and ran to search in both directions. Different space. It seems that no one should be underestimated. After hearing all the information, the corners of Huang Quan's mouth slightly raised, and his eyes looked to the right side of where Canine Tooth and Hunting Turtle were going, which happened to be the area covered by space. Since you don't plan to leave, let's all die here. Automatic operation mode. God's perspective. Surgical scalpel. Bleeding will not stop. In a different space, the battle is coming to an end. Phew. As the doctor's remaining value was drained, Shalnark, in the form of an autonomous robot that became stronger with each battle, coldly and decisively penetrated the doctor's heart. Although before he died, the doctor's scalpel then left scars on his body that continued to bleed, but it had no effect at all on Shalnark, who was as painless as a robot at the moment. After achieving the goal of annihilating the opponent, Shalnark's consciousness returned to his body since childhood, sitting on the ground slightly empty. Get rid of Maki. On the side, Maki, who looked a little tired, nodded, walked to Shalnark, and skillfully pulled out slender threads to suture Shalnark's bleeding wounds. Thread manipulation. Read, thread stitching. In an instant, the thin threads of thought were like sewing clothes, and the wounds were combined and held together through specific suture methods. Amazing. Shizuku, whose left cheek was black and blue, squatted next to him and looked at him with envy. Maki, your nen is getting better and better. During this time, they were injured from time to time while practicing fighting. Every time she saw Maki and Shalnark using nen, she felt so magical. But Quan has never allowed her to develop her nen. Thinking of this, Shizuku pouted and wanted to complain to Izumi. However, at this moment, Huang Quan had already followed the two outsiders to the other end of the different space. Ta. Looking at the two people who were inseparable from the outside world, Huang Quan looked calm, and his right hand was wrapped with colorless air conditioning like a crescent moon. The space cutting feature is in a ready-to-go attitude. At this moment, he is waiting for the opportunity to take action. Across different dimensions, the only flaw is that you can only judge the opponent's courage and strength level. Although he is very confident in the space cutting that he has just developed, he is not afraid of 10,000, just in case. When he is not sure about the opponent's 4 nen, it is best to put enough distance to deal with the opponent's support. As a nin person, the most difficult thing to judge is the opponent's potential energy unless the opponent fully releases it in front of you, shows energy. Ta. Calculating the remaining time, Huang Quan stared at the canine teeth falling behind, making sure that the two people named Blast were out of the space observation range. The left hand holding Devil's Gate points towards the void. Air door open. It's just different from before. The air gate opened by Huang Quan this time is only the size of a book and appears like a rectangle on the back of Canine's neck. Space cutting. The crescent moon's colorless thought energy, which was ready to go, blended into the void and disappeared as Huang Quan gently shook his right hand. Outside world. He was searching for the canine teeth in the rock area, looking around with a vigilant expression. He was very aware of the doctor's strength. After all, they had been partners for so many years, but they suddenly disappeared without a trace. Even if they were two together at this moment, he was still worried, and the chi lingering around him still refused to relax. However, just when Canine Tooth was about to change position to search, suddenly, an extreme sense of crisis arose in his mind, as if death was about to come. Where, in panic, Canine, who didn't know where the sense of crisis came from, was just about to release all the practice in his body. The next moment, in an instant, the colorless thought energy penetrated into the back of his neck as easily and quickly as cutting tofu. Are you kidding? The look of horror followed the canine fang's eyes, and the chi that had not had time to explode dissipated like air leakage, and then his head fell towards the rocky ground along the smooth cross-section. Bang! There was a crash. Suddenly, the hunting turtle, who was 5 meters away and always vigilant, dodged to one side when he heard the collision, and glanced at the location where the abnormal noise came from the corner of his eye. The moment the canine-toothed headless corpse appeared in his eyes, a chill suddenly spread throughout his body. Then without any hesitation, he took out the flare and released it directly into the sky. Woohoo! Bang! Shining white light illuminates the entire sky. Seeing this, Blast and the others, who were 700 or 800 meters away, changed their expressions and immediately ran towards the location of the signal bomb. Are you waiting for them both? The horrified hunting turtle used strength to concentrate his thoughts around his body, and his eyes were staring at the movements in all directions like a wild beast. However, the hesitation that suddenly appeared in his ears in the next moment made his hair stand on end and he looked like a wolf. Pounce forward. It's just that he, who had never observed with condensation, didn't notice at all that in the void area in front of him, threads of colorless thought energy like silk threads were laid out to form deadly traps. This sight, in the face of the space-cutting characteristic, the hunting turtle's strongness, which has always been known for its strong defense, was easily broken by the characteristic silk thread energy, and then the scars caused by bloodshot streaks on his body surface sprayed out red. There was blood, and bone was visible deep in every wound. There is a trap. Enduring the severe tearing pain, the strong will to survive caused the hunting turtle energy to explode to the maximum, and he forcibly twisted his body in midair and stagnated. Guardian of Green Turtle. When the Nen was activated, a huge green turtle shell appeared in front of the turtle. The colorless silk threads that could easily cut objects cut into the turtle shell one after another when it fell to the ground and were fixed in the turtle shell. Internal. Manipulator, or transmuter. Huang Quan, who originally thought that the opponent's abilities were a bit funny, his eyes narrowed, and his body quickly moved in different spaces. He came to the back of the turtle, and when it was about to fall to the ground, he pulled out the Black Devil to form a slender straight blade. Pierce the opponent's heart through the air door. Zila. However, the always sharp Black Devil did not work this time. The sharp tip of the knife covered with white air was blocked by the green turtle shell that suddenly appeared behind the hunting turtle. Automatic defense type Nen. Can it be defended passively? Or can it be controlled by myself? Thoughts flashed across his mind and he calculated the remaining time. Huang Quan glanced at the black demon that was also fixed inside the turtle shell at the tip of the knife, and his pupils turned slightly cold. Then let me see. How deep can you defend yourself? Stepping out of the air door, Huang Quan's mental energy spread out like a wave. He held the white mental energy covered by the Black Devil and transformed it into a colorless mental energy. The space-cutting characteristic attached to the blade along with the colorless mental energy, superior. As the muscles in Huang Quan's right arm expanded, his mind energy exploded smoothly. He held the black demon and violently pushed it towards the green-furred turtle shell. The space-cutting blade that continuously condensed the colorless mind energy only encountered an obstacle of 0.5 seconds. All the blades were submerged. On the back side of the turtle shell, the turtle, who had no time to dodge, was penetrated by the Black Devil's blade along with the turtle shell at the same time. He looked down at the blade that pierced deeply into his heart, his face full of disbelief. He could never imagine why the opponent's weapons were so sharp, and even his stubborn turtle shell, which had never been broken by anyone, was so easily broken. And that powerful energy far beyond intelligence. Why? With doubts, the turtle died under the blade. When the turtle shell was cut in half, it disappeared with the death of the hunting turtle. Until now, the figures of Blast and Lix had just appeared in the distance. He glanced at the corpse that was cut in half on the ground, his expression became colder and colder, and he stared at Huang Quan, who was slowly turning around with a knife. Kid. The remaining 50 million is not that easy to get. Hand over your things. I can make the decision to let you go. Oh, let me go. Glancing at Lix, who was slowly moving to the right, Huang Quan looked calm, pointed at the corpse with the pitch-black fragmented blade and said calmly, "Aren't you going to avenge your companions?" In just a few sentences, it was revealed that what had been discussed in the living room of the spaceship had been exposed. Nasla really looked like a tree trunk full of pests. Revenge. It's not important, Blast said coldly. We are just temporary partners because of the order. No matter who dies, it is a trivial matter. Give me the collection that Nasra entrusted to you, and I will pretend that I have not seen anything. Yeah. Huang Quan turned slightly sideways and calmly stared at the two people in a flanking stance. But looking at you like this, it's hard for me to believe your sincerity. How about you kill the other person and I'll give the collection to you? Hearing this, Bakuchi looked at Huang Quan coldly and took out an exquisite silver lighter from his coat. Since you don't want to pay, then die here. Snapped. The lighter was turned on, and dark blue flames emerged. Restless explosive flamer. As the blasting thought energy covered the lighter, the dark blue flames were like a fuse, instantly igniting the thought energy all over his body. Roast. The thought energy turned into a dark blue flame and burned fiercely, but it did not hurt itself at all, and even the clothes were not burned or damaged. The fire element in Conjurer. Huang Quan's expression showed interest. In the original work, it seems that only Kilua's Nen is of the electric type, right? I didn't expect to encounter Nen of other elements here. At the same time, Leeks, who was located on the back right side, received the attack signal from the explosion, and two revolvers quickly appeared among them. The sighing artist, Puyi found that Kali City's right hand directly and decisively raised the silver revolver and continuously pulled the trigger towards Huang Quan. Bang 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 bang. Accompanied by the piercing sound of gunfire, 6 white and silver bullets sealed all the lines on one side of Huang Quan. At the same time, the explosion in the distance was like a jet of flames, rushing toward Huang Quan quickly and swiftly. The blazing dark blue, the flame energy is dazzling. In just 1 second, without any verbal communication, the two people seemed to be extremely skilled in completing the perfect coordination of front and rear attacks, blocking all Huang Quan's evacuation routes. The only thing I can do is how to deal with it. Just what I wanted. Huang Quan's mental energy surged, and white mental energy covered his whole body and the black demon. The circle instantly expanded to cover both of them, and the 6 silver projectiles were clearly visible. Phew, phew, phew. The light blade was like an afterimage, cutting all 6 white silver bullets in half along the shortest and fastest path of the blade. However, when Huang Quan was preparing to deal with the explosive impact, he found that the black demon was quickly frozen by a cold air. Was it the bullet just now? Unexpectedly, he glanced at Lix, who was holding up the golden revolver in the distance with a sneer on his face. Huang Quan's whole body of mind energy exploded, and the rich black energy poured into the blade with Zhou, forcing all the rootless cold energy out. Such a huge manifestation of energy. Noticing Huang Quan's huge chi that spread to 10 meters away, the bursting pupils that were rushing towards him shrank sharply, and the chi all over his body was released to the maximum extent through practice, and his hands were condensed with thick dark blue flame chi. Fire fist. The moment he arrived in front of Huang Quan, the flame-breaking right fist fiercely struck Huang Quan's abdominal cavity. Huang Quan, who had predicted it, did not dodge, and his left fist condensed with heavy black energy hit the opponent's flame right fist hard, bombarded the past. Boom. The air surges everywhere. Click. Zitza. After a stalemate for several seconds, the two of them retreated uncontrollably. Blast took 8 steps back, but Huang Quan stopped abruptly on only the 4th step. This guy. The power is far greater than mine. Feeling that there were some bone fractures in his right forearm, Explosion couldn't help but show a solemn look, and he ran towards Huang Quan again, not wanting to give Huang Quan a chance to catch his breath. At the same time, Lix, who was shocked by this in the distance, grabbed Huang Quan's empty hand and pulled the trigger of the golden revolver without hesitation. In an instant, the golden bullets turned into streaks of golden light, shooting towards Huang Quan's head at a speed twice as fast as ordinary bullets. Tisk! What a troublesome guy! Huang Quan glanced at it. His mind energy was transformed into white energy, and his figure was as erratic as a paper painting, dodging golden beams of light. Whoosh! The golden bullets that failed to hit the target easily left transparent and clear bullet holes on the rocks not far away. At such a scene, Huang Quan couldn't help but freeze his eyes, and the danger between the two people was instantly changed. If you continue to allow the opponent to fire cold guns from behind, whether it is a silver bullet that releases cold energy or a golden bullet with strong penetrating power, if he fails to detect or something appears in the subsequent battle, the consequences may be death. This is the thought. Facing the oncoming flames, Huang Quan's white mental energy erupted from his feet, and his body suddenly turned and approached the direction of Lix at high speed. Not good. Seeing Huang Quan change his target, Blast's expression changed. After the collision just now, he knew the strength of the opponent and knew exactly what would happen if Lix chose to fight in close combat. Retreat. With a loud shout, the burst of flame energy was compressed several times behind him and suddenly released. Double flame spray. Bang! Blast suddenly accelerated like a rocket, catching up with Huang Quan, who suddenly slowed down his speed. Sure enough, I came after him. Glancing at the figure approaching quickly behind him, Huang Quan switched his mind energy to colorless mind energy, quietly leaving invisible colorless mind blade traps behind him. This is the release characteristic of Transmuter, a simple space-cutting trap, and it is not a difficult control skill for Huang Quan. Bang 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 bang. On the front side, after hearing the blast command, Lix obediently retreated to the rear side. At the same time, he used a two-color revolver to condense exclusive mental energy bullets and fired continuously in the direction of Huang Quan's attack. With the spear skills he practiced day and night, he should have killed the enemy with his spear long ago. However, the opponent's strange figure made it impossible for him to aim, so he could only use the number of bullets to cover the target, and his energy began to be consumed quickly. At this moment, Lix, Huang Quan, exploded, and the three of them were separated by a straight line. However, the situation of you chasing me was only broken when Huang Quan dodged a golden bullet through invasion like a paper drawing. Zera. Tiny tearing sounds sounded in vain. Immediately afterwards, a flaming figure rushed towards him and suddenly turned into pieces of flaming flesh and blood, attacking and scattering in all directions, with bright red blood spreading all over the sky. How come? Lix, who was expecting the explosion to come, stared blankly at the hell-like scene in front of him. The scattered bodies looked so familiar. Boom! Half of his face, carrying the explosive eyeballs, fell in front of Lix, which made his originally dull eyes turn into full of fear. When he saw Huang Quan approaching, he felt like a demon, and he suddenly collapsed mentally and let out a cry of fear. Scream. No! Don't come over! Ta ta ta! Huang Quan didn't reply and approached calmly with a knife in his hand. Since the other party has not disarmed the embodied weapon, no one knows whether his expression at this moment is real. The best solution is to make the other person stop breathing. Swish, whoosh, with a single step of mind energy bursting out, Huang Quan approached at high speed. He didn't believe it at all. Faced with the rapidly approaching death threat, Lix, who was originally screaming with fear, suddenly had a haze in his eyes. The silver bullet that was still condensing and merging in the gun suddenly shot out. Target until the approaching Huang Quan. Ah! With a sneer, Huang Quan turned slightly sideways, but the silver bullet did not continue to follow the trajectory, but strangely stopped on the right side of his waist. Bang! The silver bullet exploded directly. The concentrated cold air spread quickly, trying to freeze the surrounding Huang Quan directly. See this. Huang Quan's pupils shrank and his figure suddenly retreated. But the speed of the cold air spreading and freezing was faster than he expected. In just the blink of an eye, his right half, including the Black Devil, was frozen in place. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. So what if the kid is smart and powerful? Seeing Huang Quan literally frozen in place, Lix finally couldn't hold back his laughter and pointed the gold revolver in his left hand up and down at Huang Quan. Speaking of which, I want to thank you for killing all those idiots. Ha 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 ha. The one that just exploded to death was so beautiful. I haven't seen such a beautiful scene for a long time. You seem happy. Huang Quan tilted his head and said calmly. Is it because you can have exclusive access to the so-called P potion? In an instant, Lix's expression froze and he stared at Huang Quan. How did you know? Did the inventory of Dogtooth reveal it to you? So smart. Hidden behind his left hand, 3 snake-like colorless thoughts disappeared silently. Huang Quan's expression remained calm, staring at Lix. So, can you tell me before I die, what is the P potion? And why does Pandora care so much about that collection? By the way, the collection. Quickly walking up to Huang Quan, Lix pointed the gun at Huang Quan's frozen temple and sneered darkly, don't waste time telling me where the box is. I can give you a good time. Otherwise, I will let you know why my Nen is called an artist. You answer my question first. Boom, gunfire rang out. The golden bullet penetrated Huang Quan's abdomen with difficulty, leaving a deep crater in his head. Blood slowly trailed along the bullet holes. Don't talk nonsense to me. Seeing that Huang Quan could still gather his mental energy to defend, Lix sneered and raised the silver revolver, aiming it at Huang Quan's head again. Do you know what will happen if your brain is frozen? Don't challenge my patience, kid. Phew, I haven't been hurt in a long time. Looking down at the blood flowing in his abdomen, Huang Quan frowned and said calmly, do you know how Blast died? Explosion. Why on earth does he care what I do? Before he finished speaking, Lix, who suddenly realized something, changed his face and was about to pull the trigger. But at some point, the colorless thought energy that silently appeared on his neck and wrists tightened instantly with Huang Quan's thoughts. Space cutting. This sight. In an instant, the 3 places where the thoughts were entangled were cut off as quickly as possible. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of falling was heard one after another. I originally wanted to get some information. Shaking his head slightly, Huang Quan glanced at the wide-eyed head on the ground, and the Devil's Gate appeared in his left-hand tool and opened the air gate. Captain, too slow. Are you okay? I hope. As soon as Maki landed, he immediately nervously checked the bullet hole in Huang Quan's abdomen, complaining constantly. How could you come out alone? Do you know that the scene just now scared me to death? If I die like this? Yes, Captain. Following him, Shalnark was relieved after confirming that Huang Quan had shed some blood. If we could be released just now to contain 1 or 2 people, you could be more relaxed, right? Sorry, I was indeed careless this time. Faced with the 2 people's concern, all Huang Quan could do was apologize. Although in order to deal with the situation just now, he had already prepared several plans in his mind. Okay, Shalnark, please clean up the battlefield first and look for any Pandora serial number cards on these guys. Maki helped me sew up the wound. The bullets that guy fired were all formed by mind energy. There was no bullet residue in the wound on my abdomen. And Shizuku, what you're holding is, I just shot the leader's pistol. In everyone's surprised eyes, Shizuku was holding a silver revolver, aiming at the surrounding objects and making a gesture of pulling the trigger. As for the golden revolver, it had disappeared without a trace. I didn't expect, this gun was actually exploded. Taking the silver revolver handed over by Shizuku, Huang Quan looked at the pistol carefully while enjoying Maki's stitching of the wound. The moment he touched the pistol, accompanied by a throbbing sensation, the devil pattern quickly displayed information. Lix's silver revolver. Quality. Rare. Year. First appearance. Note. The mind tool condensed by the obsession of the Nerva Lix's final kill, input the mind energy into the handle, and transform it through the silver revolver to form an exclusive cold bullet. Note. It is attached with the obsession to kill and can be absorbed. The desire to kill myself will never die. How can I have such a strong obsession? Rolling his eyes speechlessly, Huang Quan held the handle of the gun with his left hand and input mental energy into it. During the process, he could clearly feel that the mental energy was transformed by the revolver, forming 6 white and silver bullets in the circular magazine. Bang bang bang. He fired several shots at the rocks not far away. Huang Quan, who had shooting experience before, easily hit the target, and the rocks that were hit were quickly frozen into ice stones by the cold air. The freezing effect looks pretty good. Are you interested in firearms? No. Maki shook his head and sutured the wound, pointed at Huang Quan's frozen right half and said, "What should you do if you were like this now? Do you need us to prepare hot water for roasting? Just give me some time." Handing the silver revolver to Shizuku, who had glowing eyes next to him, Huang Quan's body of thought energy boiled, gently washing away the cold air towards his frozen body. In the past, with his energy, he could actually break the freeze quickly, but doing so would cause the skin and muscles to freeze and tear, which was not necessary unless it was a last resort. On the other hand, Lix's sudden shot in the abdomen was indeed unexpected. He had expected that even if the opponent shot, it would go to the head. Sure enough, people can't be too proud and confident. Once you are too proud, there is a high chance that something unexpected will happen. He shook his head with a wry smile. Afterwards, it took about a few minutes for all the cold air in the right half of his body to be washed away by the thought energy. Not far away, Shalnark, who was cleaning the battlefield and disposing of the corpses, also came back. "I found it. Everyone has a Pandora card, but the number sequence is completely different from what I encountered before." "How to say?" "Well, just see for yourself." Whoosh. After receiving several cards flying from Shalnark's fingertips, Huang Quan looked down. The cards are respectively engraved with codes 03112, codes 03039, codes 03006, codes 02897, and codes 02777. Among them, the cards 02897 and 02777 are black and silver, which is completely different from other black and copper colors. If I guess correctly, the card starting with the number 2 was found from Blast and Lix, right? That's right. Nodding, Shalnark's face turned slightly solemn. Perhaps our initial guess at these numbers was correct. Captain. You have fought with them personally, so you know the strength level of each of them better than us bystanders. The strength of these two people who were later destroyed will clearly make people feel that they are not on the same level as the others. If the serial numbering is really based on strength, it is really hard to imagine how strong the serial numbers above these people will be. Rubbing the card with his fingertips, Huang Quan thought for a moment, smiled and said, "What is certain now is that Pandora's target is the Dark Sonata in our hands." And he showed an attitude of being determined to win. The Nen sent out are also stronger than the previous batch. It seems that the next Yukishin will become very lively. The world outside is really too complicated. Quote. Next to him, Shizuku put down the silver revolver and sighed like a kid, "Meteor Street is better. If you can do it as much as possible." Unknown currency A. Unknown currency A. Rubbing Shizuku's little head, Huang Quan smiled slightly, manifested the Devil's Gate, and opened the air door. "Let's all go in and rest. As the saying goes, when the soldiers come, the water will come and the earth will cover it. No matter what we encounter next, it will be an interesting event that we can't predict." "I seem to understand that Guy Crollo's attitude toward unknown things," pursued. "That feeling of adrenaline boiling up can really bring people a desire for excitement." Looking at the back of Huang Quan, who walked into the air door, the three of Maki looked at each other, always feeling as if they were seeing another Crollo. Is Izumi taking the form of Crollo? Ahem. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. Don't forget that thread device. Everyone who returned to the different space directly entered a state of rest. Even Huang Quan felt a little tired after experiencing a series of battles, and then he did not continue the development of trait system but entered hibernation with Ju to restore his energy. Time passes slowly. Day and night alternate, when the morning sun shines into a different space. Huang Quan, who had his eyes closed to relax, slowly opened his eyes. What time is it? 7 o'clock sharp. Not far away, Shalnark, who was playing with his mobile phone, said without raising his head, "The earliest opening hours of Nanpus Auction House is 9 o'clock in the morning. It takes about 2.5 days to get there from here. Although it is the deadline for collecting collections, there is more than enough time. Don't forget Pandora." Next to him, Maki handed the toothbrush filled with toothpaste to Huang Quan. "Those guys said last night that they were not the only ones taking action. Now Yukishin is like a predatory beast, waiting for Quan to come in. Quote. How about forget it? My intuition tells me that something bad might happen." Swish. Brushing his teeth, Huang Quan smiled with foam in his mouth. "Sister Maki, I trust your intuition, but don't forget what the purpose of our coming here is. Quote. It's the elder. Maki hesitated. But why did you accept the task of escorting the collection? If you didn't accept it, we would be waiting for the auction to start in Yuxin City. Let's put it this way. After thinking about it, Huang Quan washed away the foam, washed his face, and wiped it with a towel. My Nen is a bit special. Some rare collectibles such as Dark Sonata can enhance part of my strength. Do you understand now? Things like this may happen frequently in the future, and he plans to vaccinate a few people in advance to avoid misunderstandings in the future. No wonder. Maki looked stunned and instantly realized the importance of this information. During this period of practicing, she has a clear concept of it, and also understands how important it is to be able to use other things to increase one's own strength. Sorry, Quan. It's okay, you are not outsiders. After looking at the different emotions of the three people, Huang Quan picked up the black box on the table and stepped into the air door that appeared instantly to appear in the outside world. The outside world is still a desolate Gobi scene. Looking at the faint city appearing in the distance, Huang Quan's white mind energy increased and his figure became light, and his mind energy exploded under his feet, running towards Yukishin at high speed like a white thread. Along the way, whether it was rugged rock walls or deep pits and cliffs, he easily climbed over them by gliding, and arrived in the urban area of Yuxin in less than an hour. Suddenly, a bustling scene of huge crowds of people appeared in front of him. It is a modern city known for its prosperity, corruption, chaos and freedom. From September 1st to 10th every year, Yuxin is the most visited time period. Not only tourists and collectors from all over the world, but also gangs gather here. Everyone has a different present, but the ultimate goal is the same. That's getting what you dream of in Yuxin's auction. Such as wealth, ambition, power, desire. Weaving among the crowd, Huang Quan, who was still wearing a black windbreaker and carrying a backpack, was observing the surroundings while eating snacks bought on the street and walking towards South Peace. As expected of Yukishin. Only by seeing it with your own eyes can you truly understand how prosperous Yuxin is. Around some of the auction areas he passed, there were various hotels and entertainment facilities everywhere, and every store was full. And this is a scene seen during the day. Once night comes, gangster forces from 6 continents will emerge together, and the reason why they appear here is naturally related to the Shiqianshan Jiaoji gang's most project leader, Shi Lao Tu. The Nasla family who came this time was naturally no exception. As a gang force on the dark side of the world, what they have always advocated is, the weak eat the strong. In the cruel and bloody battles, gangs are constantly dying, and new forces are constantly emerging. From this, many related professions have been derived, such as assassins, killers, mercenaries, bodyguards. After walking for about an hour, we arrived at Huang Quan in the city center. Looking at the Nampais auction house building not far ahead, we felt slightly surprised. Along the way, he did feel a lot of secret peeping. It's just that those peeps were just peeps. Even if he deliberately passed through the dark passage, those guys still had no intention of taking action. What happened? Frowning, Huang Quan thought for a moment and stepped into the Nampais auction house. Could it be that something happened somewhere? Or does Pandora give up on snatching? Nampais auction house. As the auction house with the longest history, Yuxin will hold a grand auction for 5 days from September 6th to 10th. To participate in the auction house, you must purchase the expensive auction item catalog. Purchasing the catalog costs 12 million jin. The catalog comes with an admission ticket card that can accompany 5 guests at the same time. There is no limit to the number of uses during the auction, but when actually participating in the bidding, you must attend in the name of an individual or a group, and only one person's name can be used to bid for the collection. Finally, the auction item catalog will be on sale on September 2nd. This is the information Huang Quan just learned from the reception desk of the building. Different from the conditions for participating in the auction, the collections participating in the auction must be sent to the auction house for appraisal before September 1st, and only rare-level collections can be included in the auction item catalog. Just like this time, Huang Quan, who was invited into the exclusive room of the auction house appraiser, was quietly looking at the old man in front of him with white hair and white gloves holding a magnifying glass to study the animal skin carefully. The other person's name was Lei Wang. The reception manager who brought him in addressed him as master. I haven't seen anything recorded with Chimera in years. As if he was a little nostalgic, Master Appraiser Lei Weng slowly put down the magnifying glass in his hand, looked up at Huang Quan and said with a serious smile, the collection is good. It can be classified as a rare level collection. Our auction house has accepted this collection. You will leave an address at Peña, the female manager just now, and a staff member will send you the auction item catalog tomorrow. Etc. Huang Quan frowned slightly when he heard this, and said curiously. Master Lei Weng. You haven't told me yet, what exactly is this collection? What is recorded on it? It must have been a difficult journey for you. Leon said with deep meaning. This animal skin is made from the extinct monster Giamara. Its main function is that it can last for thousands of years without being damaged by external forces without costing $5. As for what is recorded above, it is the fragment of Dark Sonata. If it is a complete score, our auction house can upgrade it to the highest auction level. Sharp. Huang Quan's pupils shrank. There are countless capable people in the world, and just as he guessed, there are indeed people in Nampus who can identify Dark Sonata. Dark Sonata. What is that? A solo composed by the legendary Demon King. With a casual response, Leon reached out and pressed the red button next to the table. After a while, Peña opened the door with a friendly smile on his face and took Huang Quan to another room to go through registration and other formalities. At the same time, he informed the details of the commission collection after the auction of more than 10 collections. As for the specific address, he did not leave it behind. He just said that he would come and go by himself in 2 days, and walked out of the auction house with the collection registration certificate. However, when he appeared again at this time, he could not feel the malicious peeping feeling from before. Why does it feel so strange? Seeing this situation, Huang Quan frowned slightly. According to common sense, if he killed so many Nin people, most of the organizational forces would become angry and send more powerful people to kill him in revenge, right? As a result, not only did he not take action on the way here, but after he handed over the collection, he even evacuated the surveillance area. It is really hard to figure out what the thinking was there. Thinking. Passing by a commercial street, he saw a shop selling mobile phones. Huang Quan took out his anonymous bank card and walked in. When he came out again, he already had a covered mobile phone like Motorola and 3 brand new ones. Mobile phone bag. Afterwards, they found a hidden corner, released Maki and others and handed them their new mobile phones. After confirming their contact information, the 3 of them dispersed with some cash. Ta ta ta, ta ta ta. Watching the 3 people disappear into the crowd, Huang Quan leaned slightly against the wall in the corner, took his mobile phone and entered an unfamiliar number to dial. Ring 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 ring. L. Ring 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 ring. Beep. The call is connected. ... This is Nasla Housekeeping Department. I'm Quan. Let butler Liamu answer the phone. Please wait. The operator on the other end of the phone obviously knew Huang Quan's name. The moment he heard the name, he immediately contacted Lu Mu through other means. Ta ta ta. Along with the subtle footsteps coming from the other end of the phone, a slightly older voice sounded. I am Liamu. Mission accomplished. Looking at Yuxin Plaza not far away, Huang Quan said calmly, which hotel are you staying in now? After a moment of silence, Lu Mu's voice came from the phone. On the west side of the city center, Noel Hotel. The remaining reward will be handed over to you in person. Okay. Beep. The phone hangs up. After checking the approximate direction with the map that came with his phone, Huang Quan sent a few messages to Maki and others, then put away his phone and walked towards the Noel Hotel. According to the location shown on the map, he is currently on the east side of the city center, which is at least half an hour away from the west side. If you take a subway taxi, you can get there in a few minutes. Not urgent. Huang Quan, who had not seen such a bustling scene for a long time, chose to walk. After all, the task had been completed and he had plenty of time. The only target left is Cass and others. It is unclear whether Crollo took action before the agreed time. If he took the lead, no one knew what Cass and others in the hotel would do. Hope it's not too much trouble. Manipulating a trace of invisible colorless thought energy to create various forms, Huang Quan slowly walked into the largest square in Yuxin. At this time, the square was not crowded with people like other places. On the contrary, the flow of people was sparse. There were only some old people, children and women leisurely enjoying the sun in the square. In the center of the square is a large fountain, flanked by a huge church. If there are nen people among religious forces, I don't know what kind of nen will be shown by that different will. Looking at the church not far away, Huang Quan leaned over with slight interest. Although there is not much reflection of religious forces in the original work, it can be seen from some details that there are religious forces such as churches and Buddhism in this world. Thinking, born by will, and religion is the place that most advocates the practice of will. You can imagine what kind of terrifying power will be generated by will once someone steps into the ranks of the worthy. Walking to the door of the church and looking inside, Huang Quan's pupils suddenly froze as he was entering. Ma. Drops of bright red blood fell from the sky. Located on the cross at the deepest part of the church, a corpse dressed in priest's attire was nailed to the cross with a few nails, showing a Jesus-like posture. Under the corpse, a young man with short black hair, wearing a purple jacket and black trousers, was looking up silently. Pretty. The sudden sound was as calm as the calm lake surface. Huang Quan glanced around the church and saw that no one else was there. He couldn't help but calmly said, "If you are talking to me." "Ugly. That's my answer." After saying that, Huang Quan turned around calmly and walked out of the church. It's rare to be in the mood to go out and hang out, but I encountered something that affected my mood, which made me feel a little unhappy. Really tasteless. Since you saw it, please die here. The indifferent voice sounded again. A beam of light pierced the back of Huang Quan's head as fast as a laser. Whoosh! Huang Quan tilted his head slightly. The beam of light passed by his face and quickly hit the stone pillar not far away. Boom! In an instant, the extremely hard stone pillar seemed to be bombarded by a cannonball, leaving a deep pit on the surface, and a golden nail in the center of the pit was deeply embedded in it. Tisk! Huang Quan, who frowned and was already a little unhappy, suddenly turned cold and turned to look at the expressionless opponent. Short black hair, a delicate face, and a pair of cat-like black pupils. Suddenly, the corresponding figure appeared in Huang Quan's mind. Even the Zoldyks. You can't blame others for seeking death. The moment he realized that the other party was Ilmi Zoldyk, Huang Quan's expression was cold and his mental energy exploded. The mental energy aura mixed with bloody murderous intent suddenly filled the entire church, and the colorless mental energy wrapped around his fingertips rapidly. At this time, he already knew that what he accidentally saw should be Yermi performing an assassination mission. But since the other party took the lead in attacking him, don't blame him for being rude. Are you jealous? In the distance, Yermi, whose pupils were as dark as ink, felt a powerful murderous aura surrounding him, and his expression showed a hint of surprise. He didn't expect that. He just wanted to deal with an unexpected onlooker, and he was also a young man who looked about the same age as him, possessing such powerful Eastern chi. However, he was not allowed to think too much. Church door. Huang Quan's face was cold, and his right hand suddenly swung forward. In an instant, the colorless thought energy that had been wrapped around the fingertips disappeared directly. When they appeared again, they had already cut into the mysterious atmosphere surrounding L. What? The dark pupils shrank sharply. Feeling the crisis of life and death, Yermi's body collapsed and turned into afterimages appearing in the surroundings. But even so, Yermi did not escape all harm. The chest, limbs, thighs, neck and other parts were cut deeply into the flesh by invisible blades, and the blood flowed down uncontrollably. Tick-tock. Despite the severe pain from the wound, Ilmi remained expressionless, her hands turning into afterimages and inserting golden pins into the wound. In just a blink of an eye, the cut wound closed tightly as if it was being manipulated. You are strong. The dark pupils were fixed on Huang Quan. Yimi was condensing in his eyes. His arms were crossed in front of him, and golden pins appeared in the gaps between his index fingers. Tell me your name. The words were not spoken. Freely controllable thought nail. 10 telepathy nails flew out at extremely high speeds, sealing Huang Quan's up, down, left, and right directions, and several more telepathy nails pierced Huang Quan's pupils, joints, and other vital parts. Whoosh! Facing the thought nails that were faster than bullets and struck like beams of light, the Devil's Gate appeared in Huang Quan's hand, and his fingers condensed chi and pointed at the air in front of him. In an instant, a square doorless air door 2 to 3 meters wide appeared, swallowing all the incoming needles, and then disappeared. Ta ta ta. Holding the book in hand, Huang Quan walked towards Yermi with a calm expression. The opponent's mind needle is indeed very fast. If he remembers correctly, in the original work, as long as the mind needle is pierced, the mind and actions will be controlled by Ilmi, and it will also cause almost irreversible brain damage. In this case, the best way to deal with it is to prevent the other party's mind needle from getting close to you, and to deal with him when he comes into contact. Boo hoo 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 hoo. One beam of thought needles flew out quickly, and then disappeared in the door of nothingness that appeared from time to time. See this. Yermi's expressionless expression gradually revealed a dignified expression. An attack that cannot be seen by the naked eye. The void space that swallows up the thought nail. Is this guy a transmuter nen? No. If it's transmuter, how did the book in his hand appear? Disguise. Or is he actually a dual-type ninner? Just as Ilmi was thinking. Huang Quan, who had closed the distance, burst out his mind energy with one step. Under the influence of the white mind energy, his body was light and appeared like a thread on the right side of Yermi in a few steps. When he just reacted, Huang Quan's right leg was like a heat kick to Yermi's waist swiftly and violently like an axe, and the black and white energy silently switched. So fast. Reacting in time, Yermi saw that he had no time to dodge, and his body sank slightly. He used strong to cover his arms with his mental energy, trying to block his right leg to counterattack. Boom! Along with the sound of collision, a figure suddenly flew out and hit the wall of the church heavily. The hard wall collapsed, and the figure was submerged in the rubble. Smoke filled the air. When the people playing outside saw this, they screamed and fled in all directions. When the dust disappeared, Huang Quan pulled out the black demon and appeared above the gravel. However, at this moment, the other party's aura had disappeared. Use absolute. With his brow raised slightly, Huang Quan's thoughts boiled yuan and spread rapidly around him. 50 meters. 100 meters. 200 meters, until the range of 300 meters. The expansion of circle came to an abrupt stop. It's not that he can't continue to expand, but this range is enough. If the expansion continues, the people who are fleeing will also be covered by circle, and more energy will be required for observation. Where are the people? Standing there, Huang Quan looked at the gravel accumulation area with some doubts. Even if the opponent uses Ultimate Madoka as a super high-performance radar, should be able to easily detect the opponent's traces. At this moment, in Huang Quan's perception, there was not a single life form within 50 meters. Me. Did he run away? Thinking of this possibility, a hint of absurdity appeared in Huang Quan's calm eyes. Everything started with the other party launching a sudden attack, but in the end, you ran away first. Don't you think it's ridiculous? At this time, a few hundred meters away from Yuxin Square, Hadao's tall figure was jumping and running quickly on the roof with Ilmi in his arms. Zipo Year. There was a hint of coldness in Yermi's voice. Put me down. Whoosh. Zipo Nian, who was unusually tall, immediately stopped on a flat rooftop, directly released Yemi and put him down, and said calmly with a solemn expression. You are injured, Master Yermi. Also, you violated the law during the mission by attacking someone other than the mission target, which violated the Zoldyck family rules. I will report the truth to the head of the family. Ignoring Zipo Nian's words, Yemi looked at the two dented and deformed arms, with a strange murderous intent exuding from his dark pupils. I'm going to kill that guy. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.